bonds build people. That's the way I look at it. But when she first took her coat off, she had a St. Gaul's top on. And I looked at her like going, are you kidding me? And then somebody did come over to her and sort of tapped her on the shoulder and said, excuse me, Donna, but I think you need to leave. Try and bring some level of peace and harmony to the situation without an over-reliance on punishment. And Northern Ireland's a good microcosm of looking at that in the opposite sense. We've had terrible relationships, and our sense of community has been destroyed because of the things that we've done to us, which has meant when it's come to the idea of repair and harm, it's been difficult. We call it effective language or restorative language, where it says you use I, not you. You address the behaviour, not the person. And that's where the change started coming in terms of my own training. Because if I can't do this, if this is something that I switch on for work, it's fake.
Brilliant. Glenn, I am delighted to have you here.
Yeah.
Absolutely delighted to have you.
Great stuff. Well, it's been a while, like, so it has, you know. That's for absolute age.
I was just thinking, because we met probably early 2000s. We met,
yeah. It was Youth Link days for me, yeah.
Youth Link, and you and I were bonded over a model for effective practice. We like that model.
Yeah, we did indeed. But also, I think when we did whenever Youth Link moved their certificate presentation, they used to do it in a particular venue, and then we switched to the waterfront, do you remember? And we had to do all of the visual stuff for that, do you remember?
I forgot about that. Oh, to tell our viewers, remember, there was all politicians.
I know, everything.
I get rid of it was Jerry.
There was a few guys that were there. There was a few guys there representing.
And I had that. There was a cow fighting scene.
That's right.
And they had udders and the milk was flying out. And it was all youth workers, and I thought, this will be funny. There's a gap. I put it up. All the youth workers are laughing. But the leaders are...
We were just sitting there going, what the heck is this?
And best Paddy White at the time, he was like, what are you doing? Because I didn't want to buy him.
I know.
But afterwards, I
the name escapes me. I just remember that we were doing that.
I actually like that. Can I have that clip? But I remember getting told off and going, that was funny, but I just don't care.
Because that was way back. Because we were doing it was all old iMovie stuff we had used to put together some clips and things in terms of trying to jazz the whole certificate presentation up for them. Because I think the first one I did was in the studio, wasn't it? It was in the studio.
BT studio.
In Waterfront was the first one.
And they thought it was too stale for a youth thing, so they thought, oh, okay,
well, go for it.
And I had bought a bunch of screens.
That's right, because it's the first one I actually went to in terms of certificate presentation with them was down Glengall Street. I forget the name of the building in Glengall Street they used to use.
Oh, it's Methodist Centre, wasn't it?
Something along those lines. That was really dead formal and really kind of. It was a bit staid, you know what I mean?
And we knew all these workers, and they're not like that outside.
Nobody, this doesn't fly with how everybody else gets on and stuff. You know, so I thought it was, that's where we really kind of kicked off, because it was way back. We were connected even around tech and stuff then, because it was the birth of smartphones and all that kind of stuff. Remember us both having the Trio 650s? Do you remember?
And it was amazing, because you scribble and change the text.
I was going, when you found out a way of getting it to sync with your Mac and everything, I was kind of going, like, this is the dogs here now, you know. Now you think about what we'll have, and you pull up a Trio 659 and be like, kind of going, what the heck is this?
Because I remember 212 when they did the launch of the iPhone, because I had the iPod, and I had I had a phone, probably the Trio, and there was another wee thing and I think when they were trying to do a version, but it was very clunky, and when he did that, iPod. Phone. iPod, oh, please put them together. Because you're charging two things. And you just went bang.
I know. It was great. It was great, that whole thing. Because then, I think, whenever I left, it was Apple that I wanted to work for. So
the Victoria Square?
Oh, well, I ended up there, and then obviously I ended up being like a lead trainer for Apple. And
totally forgot that.
Yeah, so I went and spent some time. I think I spent nearly 10 years working for Apple.
Because their one-to-one sessions were amazing.
Yeah.
I learned how to video edit and do all my Final Cut Pro stuff.
Yeah.
So they come down and say, okay, I don't know how to do this, okay?
And it's gone though. I mean, 79 quid. If you bought a Mac, you get back for £79 or whatever else. You know, unlimited lessons. You just couldn't book more than one at a time.
That was great.
I know. I'm drifting back into my, what do you call it, retail mode here. Do you know what I mean?
But also the way they taught was about you. The way you had a methodology, which was interesting. Because you wouldn't necessarily give us the answers. What do you see there? What do you think?
Exactly,
and make the person engage the whole interface.
It's something that I've taken forward with me, because it taught me a lot about, and I'm outside my NDA now, so I can talk about it. You know, so that's true. Once you leave, you're kind of tied up for a wee bit. But they had a methodology that was called lead learning out, and it's basically along the lines of, everybody has the capacity within themselves to learn.
Yeah.
All you have to do is draw that out.
Brilliant.
And it's your job to help them walk away with what it is that they need without you kind of telling them how to do it.
And that's very much social work practice.
Yeah, well,
social
it
work
is.
was that you've got the resources, you don't even know you've got the resources.
Exactly.
Let's show you how
we talk about it in terms of empowerment. That's not a word that I love. For me, about enabling, because I don't have any power to give anybody. You know what I mean? I can't make you do anything, you know, and that's just manipulation.
These are not your dreams.
Exactly. This is not the software you're looking for. I'm kind of into that, and I've taken that through with me into my training practice now. You know, obviously I'm a training manager with alternatives in terms of restorative justice. Yeah. But that whole thing, what it kind of taught me about learning styles, because I did a degree in professional development, you know, all this learning styles stuff and whatever else. And then I discovered this approach with Apple. I thought, that's really, really good. I really like this. And then I encountered a book by a guy called Nick Shackleton-Jones, which is called How People Learn. And he introduced me to this thing called effective context theory, which was basically, if someone's really interested in something, they'll learn about it, and it doesn't matter how they learn about it. Yeah. As long as they're interested in the subject, they'll learn. Yeah. Which basically put learning styles on the back burner, which was my approach to learning styles now is people learn different. 3 words, that's it.
Well, I remember the whole big in sort of youth and community work was we're meant to be informal education, and we're creating curriculums with a formal style of education. Yeah. And so what we liked about this with the model effect practice was, well, let them create the curriculum they want to learn from. Yeah,
well, that's the idea of participation for me was and I still use that today because it links in very well with the whole restorative approach to me. And the restorative approaches mean it's a voluntary, informed, in terms of consent. And I think for me, participation was always this idea of a voice and a choice about the things that happen in your life or the decisions that need to be made. You need to be presented with, say, some information, but the decision ultimately lands with you as an individual. And it's just for me as a worker to kind of support you along the way of doing that, as long as you're not making a decision that's going to cause you some harm and stuff like that there. Do you know what I mean? Obviously.
I would like to talk about restorative stuff. That's amazing. I didn't. We haven't seen each other in so much time, and so much has happened in that time. I'm loving hearing all this. Let me get your context first.
No
your
worries.
Background, where you grew up, any siblings, brothers and sisters.
No, so I'm originally from Canada. I was born in Canada, and moved here really, really young. Parents split up. That was the scenario there. Mum came here, dad stayed there.
Was your mum from here?
Yeah, they were both from here. They were part of like, the early 70s kind of move after the conflict kind of broke out. There was not a mass exodus, but there was definitely an exodus.
Were you Toronto, you think?
Well, we were St. Catharines, which is about an hour and a half away from Toronto. But there was a lot of, around that 69, 70, 71 period, a lot of people were moving away from...
My dad used to sing the folk group, the Republican.
Right, okay.
They're called the Free Men.
Right, okay.
So it's a real chucky band, yeah. But he used to go to Canada.
Right.
And they were getting fights, because obviously there were people there from the defence. And I was going, I didn't realise that half the expats had all gone there.
Yeah, that's right. But the second longest running 12th of July parade is Canada. So it is the Toronto 12th of July parade's over 200 years. Wow. But there you go. So we're not in the parades already. Typical pro day.
It's great. And so your mum came back this way. And had your brothers and sisters?
I had a twin brother, but twin brother unfortunately passed away. And then mum
young.
Yeah. So and then mum remarried, and I had two brothers here. And then my dad obviously remarried, and I have 4 sisters in Canada. So that's the deal. But I grew up in terms of early childhood was East Belfast. Right. Just off Tampere Avenue, a place called Tar Street. But interface, and I didn't know it at the time that's where it was, but I grew up on an interface, so between the sort of the Protestant end of East Belfast and where it joins on to the Short Strand. So the Short Strand was literally 2 streets away from where I was, and I know the first time that we moved, one of the first nights after we had moved into Tar Street, as all these people were walking down the street, and I think, our area is really popular. But we were arriving for a rat. So there was a rat at the bottom of the street, because when you go to that area now, it was all open whenever I grew up, so you could watch.
International watching this, right? They won't get, I understand this. At 17, I was training to be a hairdresser.
Right.
So I went to Robert Stanley College.
Right.
Just at the bottom of it.
Oh, the Tar Street, on the side that was bombed during the Blitz.
And my family were like, no, don't go over there. Right. It's mad over there. I know what it's like. You go up one side of the fence and you're told they've got horns and they're demons.
Yeah.
I go, I can't live like this. There must be a better future than this somewhere, So I remember going over, and right up was all like, it was Freedom Corner and all the murals. And I thought, right, well, this is what we'll have to do, whatever it is. But you grew up in
that's where I grew up. So Freedom Corner is at the bottom of that street. So at the bottom of Tar Street Tar Street was split in two.
Yeah.
So you have the bottom end where my granny lived, where the Rupert Stanley would have been. Which, as I was saying, was essentially the other side of Tar Street, but also part of Westbourne Street that was blown up during the Blitz. That's why the spaces there for the Rupert Stanley College was there. That was part of an area that was destroyed during the Blitz.
Is that where the B Park is?
Yeah. Well, the Pit Park is across the way, but we're on that street where the actual location of Rupert Stanley and Tar Street was a Blitz site. That's why I got built there.
Wow.
So that's where I grew up. So, I mean, I didn't really know loads about, what the scenario was, but then obviously all the streets were open, so it was all that,
What age did you come back?
Well, we were 6 or so, so it was,
primary school?
Primary school, mostly primary school through here, which was dead on, and, but all the streets were open, whereas I go back now and all the streets are closed off. There's peace walls up, ironically. There's peace walls there, so the area is closed off now, but when I grew up, the streets were open. You could just walk in and out of the area.
The running battle would have been I don't know how, I kind of know a little bit in West Belfast, because Lenadoon used to be mixed, and then all the rats happened around there. All the ones from Lower Falls were burnt out. Lenadoon ones went to Seymour Hill.
Yeah.
And then Twinbrook was meant to be a mixed estate, but when the troubles kicked off, it just became a whole Republican. All the ones who were Lower Falls ended up there. So
it was a whole kind of...
Yeah, but where you were, it was Short Strand.
Short Strand would have been sort of the Catholic community that was there, and then obviously probably more like a bit like Upper Falls. We have a wee Protestant enclave at the top of the falls.
That's right.
Yeah,
on the Black Road there.
Yeah. So a bit like that. So the Short Strand probably is this wee clasp of a Catholic community surrounded almost by.
And is that where the peace walls went up more around?
Well, later on it went up. It went up later on. And see, it went. Funnily enough, in East Belfast, the peace walls went up post agreement. I know.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So they were never. It was never closed off when I grew up there.
Okay.
So as but that was the kind of the context that pretty much was. You're talking sort of 80s. Yeah. Sort of you're coming into the 80s anyway. Yeah. The conflict's pretty heavy going in terms of what's happening in most areas.
And had you mixed with any Catholic at that stage?
Not that I had been aware of. I mean, obviously mixed with them because they would have been on the other side of the
side of the road.
Other side of the road, and you're trying to hit somebody with a brick or something. But I mean, and likewise being somebody trying to hit me with something, but didn't really have much of a clue as to why that was the case.
You're in it. I know I'm the same. You're going because I remember telling the story. A bunch of British officers come down our street. I mean, you're watching movies like Cowboys and Indians, war films. Like, I look down the scope. I've never looked down the scope. And I remember going over and saying, I look down your scope, and then walking around a bunch of lads who go, "You're a Brit lover."
Oh,
I'm not even sure what that is yet, but your community hits you with stuff.
Yeah. No, but even then, I would say that there's probably always that skepticism towards the security forces, even on in terms of my community, because there's times that that the police weren't exactly nice or friendly or anything whatsoever. I can remember numerous incidents, where police behaviour towards me and my mates was nothing sort of ridiculous. Just for hanging about. And I remember one particularly, and I was standing outside my house, and we were all kind of gathered together, but maybe 8 or 9 of us all standing, and the police came and told us to move on and go home. And I went, all right, no worries, dead on. And he says, no, so move it. And so I just moved one step closer to my house. And he says, no, I told you to move it. And he says, I know you told me to go home. And he goes, well, go home. And I says, I am. And he's like going, you're on the street. And I says, yeah, but I'm outside my house. When my mum coming out, and there was a whole hoo-ha starting.
But he at that stage go, Oh, right.
This is your house. Like, and I didn't know. I didn't even think, going, I told you to move on. And I kind of going, I have moved on. I've moved closer to my house, mate. You know what I mean? It was like, because you're kind of like, because you don't want to be a cheeky wee shit, like, but at the same time, like, kind of going, you told me to go home. I am home.
Yeah.
And he just wouldn't accept it. He just thought I was taking a mick out of him. So.
I heard a funny story. I don't know if it was a comedian or somebody told it. But no, when the smoking ban came in, and you had to go outside the pub. And so the cops came along and went, you're not allowed to smoke. You've got to be
X amount of space between you and the pub,
kind of thing. He says, I come out of that pub. He calls the road. So it's just like crazy, man.
So that was me kind of growing up, and I suppose you kind of, it wasn't necessarily that anybody sat me down and told me this is what's happening. You kind of just grew into this is the way life is. There's an issue here between our community and this community, and if we mix, it's not going to be nice. And then but then I discovered the bonds through that there. So my whole thing would have been the bond, and this is strange for some people whenever they think about it. So for me, the bonds kind of changed my whole interaction with what was going on. So I'm maybe 9 years old, whatever, and this whole idea of parading and stuff is part of the whole culture there, And I remember the first time being dragged out into Temple Avenue and going, it's the bonds. And I go, what the heck's the bonds? And walking out and seeing all this colour, the noise and everything, and kind of go, whoa, what's this? This is mad. And then being particularly attracted to one band who weren't loud and abrasive or whatever, they weren't doing this blood and thunder kind of thing. But they were playing part harmonies and stuff. And I was kind of walking on going, this is really different. And their uniform was like a maroon and gold. And I walk up the street alongside these guys going, this is great. I love this.
Atmosphere.
Yeah, this is great.
There's a community atmosphere.
Yeah, and everybody's kind of, getting involved and everything. And then I was thinking, well, if I was going to join one of these bands, this is the band I would join. But kind of left it at that. And as you do as kids, we used to get cardboard boxes from like crazy prices and Stewart's and all, and turn them into drums and everything, and coming up with crazy names for your band, and we had this big, I remember one, there used to be like a fruit company that had like a blue whale and their boxes were really big, right? And we used to use those for like bass drums, and you were like getting tape and all on them.
There's my toms, there's my snare.
You know what I mean? So we're doing everything like this kind of stuff, but we're turning into full on marching band stuff, so, and, but when you're like coming up with names for this fake band or whatever else, I was like kind of going, well, somebody says, well, what about Star of the East? And one of them goes, well, we're not a Chinese takeaway, like, you know what I mean? So, so we were doing wee things like that, coming up and to have these impromptu praisers, none of this 11 bar one stuff,
How many instruments do you play?
Well, I play guitar, bass. I do a wee bit of keyboards. I'm not great. I'm great for chords and turn the backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. I play a B-flat flute. I play a concert flute. I dabble with a piccolo, 10 whistles, and
drum.
And I drum as well.
Yeah.
So,
could you? You've seen them YouTube videos where you get a kid with this like pots and pans, and he's an incredible drummer. And he's like, out of this.
I know, exactly. Yeah, so this was like march and stuff, so I didn't have any clue. It was not all stuff that kind of came later, like kits and stuff came later. But that's what we were doing. And then we were heading out to play football one night, and with one of the older guys in our street, a guy called Darren, he was coming down, and he was like, oh yeah, we're heading to Avonale, we're going to go and play football. Are you coming? And he goes, no, I'm going to band practice. I was like, so I'm up after him like 2 men a wee lot. I was like, what band are you in? And he goes, Prayer to the Raven. And that's who I had been following up the street. And I was like, I'm going with you.
And then the Raven Up Road, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's where the NSD came from. And it was that kind of, that area. And I said, I'm going with you. And he was like, oh, you need to go and ask your mom. And I was like, I ain't going to join a band. She's like, I right there on. And,
she thought you were joking?
I said, I right there on. And that was it. So I remember me and him walked up the band hall, and we stopped outside this place because they practiced initially whenever I joined on a wee place just off the Beersbridge Road. And just up from Eddie Spence's, believe it or not. And but we stopped outside this place, and I was like, what are we doing here? Because it looked like an old bricked up shop. You know, so it would look like it was derelict. And I was going, what's in here?
Is that around where the roundabout was?
No. So if you head up towards the crossroads between sort of the Craigie, Cherry Hill Street, or there, that's where this was.
Okay.
So basically, and I said, this is the bottom hall. I go, what? This place looks like it's been bought more times in Europa. It's nuts looking. And then we wrap the door and you hear all these like, all the locks being done, and a guy opened the door. It was like going, hello. You know, it's like going, and I like kind of going, so this is where a bomb. And then when I walked in, you know, and there was pictures all over the wall, there was trophies all over the place. I was like, what is this? You know, what have I actually got myself into? And sat down, she says, what do you want to learn? And I'm like kind of going, what can I do? And I go, so do you want to learn how to play flute? And I'm like going, all right, let's do that. And I sat down with a guy called Terry Hamilton, and Terry taught me how to play flute, and that was unbelievable. This is the thing, when you think back to when that was, I mean, we're talking early 80s, right?
But for an older guy,
but maybe 10, 11 young people sitting in front of him, teaching them how to play the flute.
Also, when I seen Jim and Oliver doing his cooking program, there's times he was doing better youth work than some of the youth work.
Well, this is it.
His engagement with them people was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was just really impressive.
No, one of the things that really stood out for me, and it's only the benefit of hindsight now that I look back on this and kind of think about, you know, the way that the guys in the band interacted with me, was in terms of opposed to the formal education system.
Yeah.
You know, where everything in the formal education system was, no, you don't do it that way. This is the way you do it. Mm-hmm. What I found in the band was, okay, that's sounding all right, but maybe try this.
Yeah.
You know, and try and get to this here. Or if you'd made a mistake, it wasn't, hey, you've made a mistake. Good effort. Maybe need to work on this wee section here. It's a completely different approach to me. You know, and
because I find sometimes in the very high end professional class, they're brutal with one another.
I completely.
They're like, and they can't admit failure. It's not failure, you're learning.
Yeah.
There's no failure in it.
That's the whole point of learning. Is there something you can't do, you need to learn how to do it?
And if you've got the exploration stage of child development and you're seeing when they're learning to walk, and I used to always do that joke with your daughter's trying to walk and you go, come on.
Yeah.
And if they fell down, you wouldn't go, you stupid wee. But there's something.
But there's that, there is that element. You know, when you think about it, I mean, and this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning about this, the idea of lead learning out. By the time you arrive in school, you've already learned how to talk, you've already learned how to walk. You didn't have a teacher.
Yeah.
You learn from your environment that was around you. Yes, your parents did things to kind of help you along, but they drew alongside you and, you know, were supporting you and whatever else. So you already go into the school system with a heck of a lot of learning under your belt.
Anyway. Between 6 to 8, a lot of your development's already formed.
Yeah.
That's the
exactly. Do you know what I mean? So, and then you're told, hey, no, this is the way you do things, which is kind of an alien to what you've been doing up to the point that you go in there. And I get it, you know, but obviously we're dealing with the fact that there's an education system with a curriculum that was built on an upper class approach prior to this. The curriculum that you have and what have been working class areas was probably never supposed to be in place.
Work for these.
Yeah, exactly, you know, so.
And how did you do academically going through it? I flunked out of it totally.
I was all right up until primary 7, and then I had a bit of a blip. And the reason I had a bit of a blip was due to a teacher. So final kind of exams, didn't do that great on my 11 plus. Didn't really care, to be honest with you, because for me, I was joining the army. That's what I think, oh, do I need this? I was going to join the army. And then my final exams in primary 7, I aced a lot of my tests. It was 100 out of 100 for everything on my tests.
Isn't that weird? Army people we know are really intelligent, but it's not shown academically. And either it's the way we engage them or...
Well, it's not there. But whenever my report came back, though, I had Bs. Everything was a B. My teacher marked me everything as a B. So whenever I was going home with a report that said everything was Bs, I'm expecting a slap around the back of the head from my mad. You know, I was like, going, what are you doing with Bs? And so she was saying, what's the story? I said, I aced the test. I can't get any higher than 100 out of 100 in terms of percentage. I don't know what the crack is here with these being Bs. They'd mark me down. They'd mark me down. So we went to the school, and she says, what's the story here? And my teacher said, yeah, he's not as smart as everybody thinks he is, and I don't want to encourage him to be any better. So that's verbatim. Now I remember that conversation vividly. That's verbatim. That's exactly what he said. And
at that age, you feel very powerless too, because these are adults talking to you, and you go, I even speak back here.
Yeah, exactly.
But they put me in the remedial class in primary 5, and I didn't get diagnosed with dyslexia and all that kind of stuff till later in the ADHD stuff. But I remember, because they used to line us up P1, P2, P3, and I'm P5, and then my mates here, and then they did some tests, and I did really bad in it, whatever, and they made us line up beneath the P1.
Right, okay.
And so all your mates are up there, and every day they're all like,
get raked.
One on one is they're just ripping into you like kids do, you know. And you put on a brave face, but you're slightly humiliated, and you don't know what to do with it, you know.
So that set me off the rails. And my first kind of 2.5 years in secondary school were a nightmare for the teachers that were there. Let's just say, I was like, because part of me was like, going, what does it matter?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I've done what people have asked me to do, and that's not good enough.
Yeah.
So why should I even bother?
Yeah.
And
so you lose your faith.
I lost it. I was just kind of going, I don't give a rat's ass about this. I really don't. And then it was compounded by even some of the teachers in secondary school and stuff. You know, you were told never to be late for class and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I remember one day, I was going to class, and there was a guy, Mr. Sinnerton. He's dead now. Like, I used to teach French. Monsieur Sinnerton, there's a trauma coming back. And he called me, and I was like, well, no, I need to get the class, because the bell had went, and, you know, everybody was like, and he says, Glenn, no, I need to speak to you. I think, well, no, I need to get the class. Right? So I just ignored him and went to class, which is obviously what I thought I was supposed to do. Yeah. So I'm in the class. 5 minutes later, Monsieur Sinnerton walks into the room and brings me out. For disobeying him, for not coming. I said, so I'm sitting there going, so I'm in here sitting talking to you about the fact that I did what I was supposed to do by going to the class, and now I'm missing out on what I'm supposed to be taught because you don't like the fact that I didn't come on. I was like, going, this is nuts. I said, don't you talk back to me? I'm like, going, seriously, excuse me for...
Because perception is such a big thing, isn't it? And when you're a kid in a kid's mind going, I've got 2 authority figures here, and you're thinking, if I don't do this, I'm going to get it here.
Yeah,
I'm going to get it here.
I'm going to get it here. So
I know the schedule says here, so I'm going here.
Yeah,
and he's going to be just disobeyed that one. And as a child's mind, it's hard to even dissect that.
Yeah, but that's that lose mentality for you. Nobody likes being, when you're put in that kind of position. You know that you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. You know, so I think that's a weird place for young people to find themselves in, because they want to do the right thing. There's an essence, like, it wasn't like I was, you know, I want to do the right, I've been told this is what I need to do. I want to do the right thing, but here's something that's in conflict with that, and I need to make a decision here as to what I'm going to do. Do you know what? And
have you seen that YouTube talk? I forget what it is, but it's massive. It's a TED talk one, and it's how schools kill creativity.
Yeah.
It's like, the best time of the early stage, you can be bilingual, you can learn language, your brain's totally fluid, your ability to take in stuff is massive. And somehow these structures go, no, don't think like that, think like this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it kills all that play and that exploration.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I found that it was definitely one of those things that kind of stifled me. And even with our, you know, like music and stuff, you know, in school, it wasn't really well funded. And it was something, there was obviously a number of us in my class were all in flute bands, you know, and we were like kind of, we're really interested in music and stuff like that. It turned out a disaster. You know what I mean? Our music teacher didn't really, you know, help us in any shape or form.
When our music teacher turned his back, we all jumped out the window. I would run round.
Could try and get back out.
And going, where are you? You told me.
So this guy, our music teacher was this guy called Rutherford, but his name was Rubber Duck because his skin looked like it was rubber and pasted on, right? Yeah. But he used to have all the rakers at the front. Yeah. So there was me and wee guy Junior Walker, wee guy Bargy, Frankie Race, and a guy called Stevie Moore, right?
Bargy. Jimbo, Samo.
That was it. So we're at the front of this class, because he's like kind of going, keep an eye on these guys. These are the rakers, right? So, but his whole thing was give them a wee bit of responsibility, and he may get something out of us, you know, and this kind of thing. So I remember one day, as a guy, I love telling my kids this story, and we're doing recorders, the dreaded recorders, right? So he says to me, he says, Miller, because you couldn't call anybody by their first name. You were all just degraded to your surname, right? And he says, Millar, disinfect the recorders. I think, right, no worries, let's disinfect. So the disinfectant was in a coffee jar. Do you remember way back in the day, people used to poison each other by not labeling things, right?
That's right.
So I had the thing, I was like, well, he's saying they're all laid out on the desk, and I'm like kind of going, what would be a really quick way of me to disinfect all these recorders all at once? So I just started pouring the disinfectant all over the recorders, and he's like losing the plot. Like, he starts chasing me around.
Like on a table?
Oh, it was on the table. So I just go, just throwing.
And did you know it?
I don't know, was doing that. Like, so I just like pouring the disinfectant all over these things. He starts chasing me around the room and everything. And it descended into chaos now. And there was books and all being thrown. People are dancing on the piano and everything. It was crazy. And then he always used to threaten us with the headmaster, Weston, and he would always come back, and Weston was never with him. So whenever he did this, we were all going, they're giving him. I don't know how he lost it, to be honest with you. But this particular day, he went out of the room and he says, I'm getting Weston. And the place, we were going nuts. It was like, I don't know, it was like a scene out of Animal House or something. It was crazy.
And the younger generation won't get this because we had corporal punishment.
I was caned, yeah.
And I'll give you a story here. We did so we go to first year, and primary school we didn't learn Irish, but you had to do it for the first 3 years, compulsory.
Right.
In secondary school, and our teacher was Mr. Lavery. Sorry, Mr. Lavery, you're listening to this. I actually like you, but it sounds like you're going to sound like you're barbaric here. But and he came in, and we'd heard when you're first year, they called up there, and they said, "Your Irish teacher, Mr. Lavery." Clint Eastwood. You're like, why is he called Clint Eastwood? You'll see. And so all the older ones are just scaring you, right? And so we arrive in, and all the wee licks are sitting in the front, all the hard men at the back, and all this kind of stuff, So he walks in, doesn't say a thing, walks to the front of the class, looks at the guys. He goes, "Well, boys, hi, sir. You know what my name is? Mr. Lavery. No, you know what they really call me here? Clint Eastwood? You know why?" We're like, no. He opens his briefcase, right? And he turns it around, and he's got leather straps all inside his suitcase, right? And he obviously went around all the other teachers and said, "Give us your one, we're going to play a prank on these kids," So he's just messing with our heads because he knows there's like a rumour out there.
Oh, man. So you just thought you were in for an Irish lesson, and it was actually BDSM kind of stuff going on there. What's happening?
I'm going, this guy's a psycho. And so he sits down, and I think he pulled out a bit like a leg of chicken, and he just started eating it. And
what is going on here?
And then he pulled a bag of Murray mints, took one. He goes, "I'm sorry, that's really rude of me, boys. Would you like next week we give all the ones fun with sweet?" And so they're all like, "Oh, he's not too bad after all." So sweets, and then he's sitting there and he goes, "What's that in your mouth? Are you eating in my class?"
Oh.
Nobody eats in my class. Come up here. And he slapped each one. And we're just like, this is mad.
Nuts. It's nuts.
But he was kind of doing it with a twinkle. It wasn't kind of just like totally mad, He says, "Okay, I'm going to teach you some stuff in Irish, and you got to tell me what it is in English, or I'll tell you in English, and I'll tell me it in Irish. So I'll give you some stuff to learn. You come back next week, and we're going to play a thing he called it Game for a Bath."
Right.
He says, "If I ask you something in English, you got to tell me what the Irish of it is.
Okay.
If you get it wrong, I slap you. But if you get it right, you get to pick somebody. I get the slap. Either way, I'm happy." Now this sounds horrific. Anyway, listen.
I don't know.
But he was doing it tongue in cheek, and there was kind of a bit of a comment among the kids, like, "Oh, this is a bit of a game," And it was kind of things like that were great.
No, that would have been really prevalent in terms of even our school. We used to love getting one over on teachers because obviously I think we were caned up until third year, and then obviously it became, it became illegal. You weren't allowed to use corporal punishment anymore. But I remember we had a teacher. It was a maths teacher. It was Luther, was it? And his room was up at the top end of one of the corridors, but it was looking out on the 5 side pitches. Yeah. So there was a ledge with all where the windows was, and everybody used to put their bag on the ledge of the window. He would have come in and he'd go, "Guys, you need to take your bags off the ledges and stuff, right?" So and we hadn't done it. And he goes, "Yes, listen, I'm going to go and get the maths books here for you. if I come back in here and there's any bags on the window ledge, they're going out the window, right? So we comes out and there's one.
That sounds like a challenge.
No, it is. We didn't hear though. So he comes back in. All the bags bar one are left on. There's one bag left on the window, and he walks up and he says, "I told you, if there was one bag left on here, it's going out the window." She opens the window, throws the bag out the window, right? So he then goes down and sits at his desk, and he goes,
"No,
lads, where's my bag?"
You stuck it. No way! Oh, that's brilliant.
We're killing ourselves laughing.
Did he laugh or go nuts?
No, he went nuts.
Get out there and get that bag!
That was crazy.
Oh my!
So as we all got caned there. So
we did it. One of our history teachers, and he was funny. He did you do Simon Says. And the way it worked was, and we'd ask for it, like, wasn't it? It became a bit of a who can take the.
Yeah.
And what would happen was it goes, Simon Says stand up, Simon Says sit down, but stand up. Oh, you stand up, okay, you get a slap. It's all the ones who stood up got a slap.
Sure.
But then we'd go up. So next time would be, if you get it wrong, 2 slaps, 3 slaps. By the end of that class, the last guy got 128 slaps. I got it around about 70. And you're putting both hands out, and he had a strap. It was a leather one, and he hit it, and he go, no, and you flip it over, and you go clang, he had a metal thing inside. Now, the guys obviously were up for the crap, and he definitely wasn't being sadistic. I know it sounds crazy to people, but I remember just sitting there, you put your hand out, and you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, other hand, and you just count up to 7, and you go as fast as you could, and we were like, we'll come back next week and go, we can play it again.
So it was the only time that I really got a major caning that caused me some concern was an art class, funnily enough. And the art teacher decided that it was a good idea to let some of us loose with a camera. Right? So we let us out of the class and all to go and take photographs, right? So our wee group, who obviously I was telling you about in regards to, we're always sitting at the front because we're the rakers and stuff. We're out taking photographs, right? But we're obviously, let's say, stretching the boundaries of what might be acceptable here, right? So we went off into the estate that was close by the secondary school, which was Clarwood Estate, right? But we're taking pictures of dogs going to the loo and all. Blue moons.
And that's what you have to develop, fellows.
Yeah. So not thinking like this guy's going to take these into the dark room and develop this stuff, right? So we're doing blue moons and everything and taking all these crazy pictures, somebody's standing over dog shit and everything, but we're looking like it's coming from us and all this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And he went into the dark room, and as soon as he came out, he was just like, Millar, Walker, bars. No, and he caned us, but he was known as a wick caner, right? He was one of the way you get these guys that just couldn't cane you, right?
Right.
So when he caned you, like hang on, all right down. You had to pretend, oh man, that was really sore, right? Yeah. So he was like, line up, we were all getting the cane. So I was standing first, whatever else, and I put the hand up, and I was like, and then put it down. He says, son, who told you to put your hand down? And I was like, oh no. So he goes, so 10 times on this hand, right? And he really was going for it. And then he goes, other hand. And I was like,
no, they took the light in it or were vicious with it.
That was it. We were left with welts and we couldn't even lift our bags and stuff. It was.
I remember in a cold morning, your hands were freezing, and it was just like, it was twice as sore.
No, well, we had a French teacher, not Sinnerton, Madame Leonard. Oh my God, she was French, but she caned you like this. She got your hands like that, and she, yeah. But what she did was she grabbed 3 rulers and spread the rulers apart, right? And got you to hold your hand like that, and she just.
I remember one doing like that side of the ruler and the knuckles.
With a knife.
Instead of a wee guillotine. Millar.
I know, man. Listen, it's one of. I don't say because we're painting a really brutal picture.
Like, some people were playful with it, and they were just like, you realise you have 30 lads who are all teenage, and they're sitting behind
nuts,
and you're trying to keep them controlled.
Yeah.
So I got what they were trying to do, and then there were some people who were just couldn't. They were having a bad week, and they took it out in the kids.
Yeah. There's a school that was kind of interesting. It wasn't until maybe sort of late 3rd year that I kind of had an encounter with a teacher. A teacher basically took me outside and beat the living daylights out of me and outside a geography class. And then he just ostracized me from the rest of the class. Anytime that I come in, I had to sit in a wee place on my own and stuff.
And you're folks?
But they were like kind of going, you obviously deserved it, son. You know what I mean? So yeah, it wasn't really a case of, here, you must have done something.
What did you do?
Well, I was raking about it. I was taking, taking Megan. Like, he was just not. He was just wasn't up for it. He's like, he took me inside. He goes, "Listen, I don't believe all this crap that you don't have potential stuff. All you're doing is wasting any opportunity you have here." And he paid 11 days, sort of. And he says, "You're not going to get it in this class. You're not getting away with anything anymore, and you will be on your own in this class, and you will sit off to the side until I feel that you're ready to rejoin in and be part of
So
whatever's
he's
going
thinking,
on."
I'm going to go hard this and this.
Yeah, I didn't see it at the time. At the time, I kind of thought, but that was a turning point for me. And it's not that I did extremely well. I had messed myself up in terms of going into the exam, in terms of going into GCSEs. I did as well as I did as I possibly could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then reset a few and got, because the school we didn't have a sixth form, so you couldn't go back and do anything
so
along.
college
So we ended up went to Rupert Stanley College, so that's where I went and reset some of my GCSEs. And then I'm 52.
Yeah, I'm 55. So yeah, then I went back tried to do my English and my math because I totally didn't get left on nothing, But I did that before I did the hairdressing. That's what it was, and it was a great year.
Yeah,
but it was
no, it was difficult one. In terms of coming, because it seemed to be like everywhere. The school was really underfunded, under-resourced, and because it was one of the main boys' schools, and there was Orangefield and Icefield, two main kind of schools in that area and stuff. And there was thousands of us, in those schools.
Yeah.
And part of
the streets were at times quite
rough.
feral.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Like my dad was a boxer, but when you talk to him about it, he was an Olympic medalist. But I said, so where did you get into it? He says, no, just to defend myself. It was rough.
Yeah. No, completely. It's one of those things. The atmosphere in school was definitely, I would look back on it and go, I have some amazing memories to look back on, but it's not to do with education.
Mm-hmm.
It's to do with the relationships that I had. And I think for me, that's really an important kind of standout for me, is that's what I remember most about school, is those times when we were raking about, the times we did stuff together that was kind of like, here, and you were planning something and it worked out, and it was just, you were talking about it for ages, and I kind of go, I can't believe that teacher fell for that and all this kind of stuff. That's the stuff that I remember. I don't remember anything. Well, I say that, there's maybe one thing that I remember that a teacher taught me. That was about caring for books. And that stuck with me,
Your daughter.
It was about caring for books in general. But it was that there, but it was just books in general. He's like going, I remember him saying something along the lines of, look after your books because books are the bearers of knowledge. And it's like, it's turned into something. All my books that I have now all look like they're brand new. There's no, there's no banded covers. The spines are all intact and all that kind of stuff.
There's something here that's going to be valuable.
Yeah. I'm going to look after it and whatever else.
And did you have a kind of, sometimes I had one or two teachers I thought,
because there was maybe one or two. It wouldn't have been. I wouldn't say there's a teacher that stands out for me. Like, I don't have a Michelle Pfeiffer moment, where this guy come into the projects,
Although you walk through the valley of Michelle.
That's what I mean. Or Freedom Raiders or whatever else. Hello. If your woman Garnered walked into our car class, it would great. So,
well, Bill Burr says, I want to see the one when they go down. The class kicked the absolute lights out of them, and they never come back again.
Never come back again. I said, he's sitting. I know, Bill Burr's great at that thing. He says, how many more? Because he's good along those lines, because he talks about, how many of these black oppression movies are going to make. He does one about, they've got it down to swimming. They were the first all-black swim team.
The ping pong.
But no, he does that whole thing. He's just sticking a rag on their head and all this kind of thing. You're down with the kids and everything. So it didn't have that kind of a moment. I don't think I had a teacher like that. It would have been standout for me. But the relationships that I had with guys in school, really kind of remember those.
You're just very loyal to each other.
We were loyal. Now, whenever you broke that loyalty, you felt it, in terms of, the ostracization that came from even your own mates at times, maybe something you'd done or whatever else. One that sticks with my mind, it was a guy in my class, Fergie, and he had lent me a copy of a band from Scotland, the Black Skull tape. And he said, and it was brilliant, and I'd never given it back. And then I told him that the tape had unraveled and I couldn't get it back in. But he do find really and acting on him, so.
Okay.
But that there's the kind of, those are the kind of things you kind of look back on. What the hell did I do? Just go to Nuts Corner and buy the tape you needed, you know what I mean? So,
because they still don't know. Sorry, Nuts Corner.
Maybe back then they would have, but so you had that kind of rebel, and then obviously for me, the bond at that stage, because going all the way through school, the bond was the major part of my life. It's the one thing that I dedicated everything to. So for me, the learning my instrument, being able to walk with a band and stuff, I put all the time and effort into like learning all of the tunes off by heart to make sure that I could get out and played with the band and done that really quickly. But it was that looking after my uniform. So all the things that school should have kind of taught you about responsibility and all this kind of stuff.
Did that kind of, you were talking about possibly wanting to join the army. Was that part of that?
Well, there was a part of that there.
Uniform and discipline. And
yeah, well, you've got that idea where there's that connection where you're walking in rank and all this kind of thing, and you're playing military style tunes and all the marches and things like that there.
And they're held in high regard.
All that type. So there's an element where that's really, that commemoration aspect of our community is extremely important to us, and it's ingrained in us. So that's where I learned all of that stuff, those type of life skills stuff, but also the stuff that we connected with in regards to, the model for effective practice. It's interesting you mention that because I use that sometimes to talk about bonds, and say, well, listen, at the core of this is this idea of personal and social development, right? And for me, that's what bonds are about. It's about developing as a person, but also developing how you interact with other people. Yeah. So for me in a bond, you've got people from 6 through 60, 70, plus years old. So you need to be able to communicate with everybody. So the bond gave me that capacity. And I would say, looking back, that was a wee bit of an influence on me maybe getting into the youth work sphere.
And it's true, and because people talk about youth culture. Back in the day, there was more integration as far as generations goes. In the bar and the men's club. But there was and if you were stepping out of lines, but he went, hey, don't talk to her like that. Don't say that.
Exactly.
And so you got a wee check.
Yeah, a wee bit on that there. But it's where I learned in terms of even having a voice about things, because whenever I became a full member of the band, you're talking I was maybe 10, 11 years old. When we say full member of the band, you join as a learner, which means that you're just learning your instrument, obviously. Okay. But once you get to a position where you're able to play all of the tunes that band plays, you can go out and walk on the road, because you can't carry notes about with you. You have to learn. Everything has to be off by rote, right? So whenever you get that, that's you seen as becoming a full member of the band. There's meetings and stuff. You go, you get proposed and seconded and all this kind of stuff, that you're now a full member of the band. But it also means that all full members of the band have votes about decisions that the band makes. So where they're going on parades, if they're going to change uniform, if they're doing something specific for fundraising, all goes to a vote. So bonds are set up.
Music we're playing.
That type of stuff is in there as well. But so bonds are set up at like committees would be. So we have a treasurer, we've got a chairman, we've got a secretary. There's a committee there who look after things. And there's a form and a structure to how things get done.
And pardon my ignorance here, because going on the other side of the fence, pipe bands in Orange. Are they the same or not the same?
Yeah, there's a connection in terms of the fact that you've got that Ulster Scots kind of connection there. But pipe bands used to be a lot of them. And it depends where you go in the country now. But like where I'm East Belfast, there's no pipe bands knocking about whatsoever. Yeah. No. There used to be one that took part in the 12th on a regular basis. Gone. There's no pipe bands take part in the Belfast 12 at all now. It's majority flute bands. It's just one depend on the weather. Sometimes pipes getting wet and stuff like that there. Maybe not the greatest kind of...
So you're saying pipes you're talking...
we're talking proper bagpipes and stuff like that there, so whereas flutes and accordions are probably the easier... Now, I'm not saying accordions are easy to carry. The accordion players will be giving me stick here for going, because they're all deformed. They've all got one arm that's got more muscles than the other, when they're doing the whole thing.
I had a hazard in my head playing... Remember when you had to learn a recorder in school?
Uh-huh.
And you were thinking you were going to learn something really cool. And you just
ended up
this is terrible.
Well, you have all of that kind of thing, but that's for me was the idea of having a voice and a choice about things. So I remember I went to my first meeting, because when you're learning, you're not allowed to sit in on the meetings and stuff, because it's only for full members of the band. Right?
And there's a sense of ambition in that.
Yeah. You want to be part of this here. You're more in the inner circle type thing, But and whenever they were voting on whether we were going on a parade, and I hadn't put my hand up, and the chairman saying, "Glenn, are you not voting?" I'm like, going, "What?" I go, "You need to vote." And I'm like, "Are you going or are we not going?" It's like, so we'll do this again just to make sure we can get Glenn's vote in. And it was like all those in
So
favour.
you're valuable.
Yeah.
Your vote's important.
Yeah, your vote's important. Regardless of whether your age or whatever else, you're a full member of the bond, so you have the exact same rights as everybody else.
It's like a rite of passage as well.
Yeah, pretty much. You know what I mean? So that for me was a real, you know, I suppose for me, it's not how things normally got done.
Yeah.
You know, there was no sit down asking for your opinion. You know, there was very much a case that's still of that Victorian thing of we kids should be seen and not heard. And, you know.
And there is, I mean, I thought we read a passage there, but there has to be initiations for that. And you're hitting the years of reason, 12, 13, 14. And they're going, you can think that. You can think
you can do this.
We want to affirm you're becoming a young adult.
Exactly. You know, so for me, the bond was extremely important in regards to that. But it's also then, it's where I started to take care of my own stuff. You know, looking after my uniform, making sure my shoes were done, making sure that I got somebody iron my shirt for me. You know, so, but, and I was always, and then it's where it developed maybe a wee touch of OCD, because whenever my bond uniform went into the wardrobe, nothing else was allowed to touch it. You know, so it was like kind of going,
the pride
it's there, nothing else touched that. And if anybody, if it's moved, you know, I was like going, who moved my uniform? You know what I mean? So it became a real thing that I was really proud of. And, you know, and the shoulders went, when you put it on, there was something about whenever that uniform went on that changed kind of within you, and you kind of stood a wee bit taller, you know, felt a wee bit more proud about who you are and what
you're with the band of brothers.
You know, and you're walking about and you're all in this together kind of thing, you know, which was for me was an amazing thing, you know, growing up, you know.
I totally could see how that would be the case. Totally. And wow. I love hearing this because coming from the other side of the fence, you don't get to hear.
People don't see that side of it, you know. They don't see that this other social aspect in terms of, because one of the things that I and this is just me on my kind of bond crusade in terms of, you know, the way I look at it is like bonds build people. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And
but like, you think about clubs, whether it be swimming clubs, whether it be, you know, any football, whatever, and working right, the camaraderie is amazing. You can see a Saturday in the pitches in Craigavon here, full of young men, you know, just running around there, the discipline, and they're all knocking edges off each other and growing up, you know. So
exactly, but for me, when I look at it from sort of Protestant communities where bonds are an integral part of life there, everything else is changing around us, especially in working class areas. The main employers were disappearing, you know, the socioeconomic status was changing, you know, things were in flux. You had the conflict, what was coming out of the conflict and so on.
And all the industries were leaving.
Yeah, you mean, you look at East Belfast, the ropeworks closed down and all this kind of stuff. Everything, So you have all of this flux, but this consistent part of the culture, the bonds, were educating young people, teaching them how to, you know, play an instrument, what it means to be in regards to respecting your culture, respecting your community, all these kind of things. And then strangely for me, keeping me away from a lot of the crap that was going on around us. Do you know what I mean? So there's this kind of paradox of the bond kind of took me away from some of the stuff that was happening.
Sure.
So I couldn't ignore the troubles, you know.
So I hear this and it sounds really positive to me, right? So I'm growing up, I remember going to, I was in Lavery's bar, probably 17, 18. Well, around there, you know. And a bunch of guys go, want to go over to the Sandy Road, there's a bonfire. I go, sounds dangerous. Do go to Sandy Road on the 12th. It's still the troubles. You know? And I'm going, I'd like to see that actually. We all snuggle over, of course. I'm Billy, he's Billy, everybody's Billy. You know? And just the crack. And because I'd been to sort of kind of bonfires they had in West Belfast, or kind of what it was commemorating something, you know. But my ignorance in a lot of that cultural stuff was I just found politics and everything so dangerous. I didn't want anything to do with it. And even if there's good elements in there, I just didn't go near it. You know what I mean? And so I've been very distant from that and somewhat, I don't know, there's a line between innocence and ignorance. Do you know what I mean? And I remember we were trying to make our kids very cross-community oriented. I didn't want them caught up in the tribal stuff. And at one stage she went to London and brought back her grandfather, Jack Keery. Not known her grandfather. I think, look, Okay, she didn't even know this.
Yeah.
And at one stage in our street, you'll laugh this there, we have like a new church kind of thing.
Right.
And we have some people from the Orange there and in pipe bands and things. And then there's me as well. And so my daughter at one stage, there was a jam club, a Jesus and Me club.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a wee bit of scripture.
Yeah.
And they said, can I go? Yeah, go ahead. I went out at one stage and my daughter is flicking an orange bat in the air.
Right, okay.
Quoting Jesus is Me and has her mum's rosary in her. Her grandmother's rosary. And I'm just going,
oh my goodness.
It's like you just got Northern Ireland. There you go. That's what you get.
Exactly. There you go. Eclectic.
And a part of me was delighted with that because I know this is messy and these are crossing lines that are just complex for people.
Yeah.
There's all the history there, But I wanted them lines crossed, I wanted.
And I think there's an element where we don't want. I think for me, holding on to the good stuff that's there is really important. To say that because it's easy for me being on the inside of bond culture to look at how it's vilified. In terms of how it's presented outside of, I suppose the insider knowledge and saying, listen, well, that's not been my experience. That's not my experience being a member of a bond. Is this? But I can also come outside of that and see how it might be presented that way.
And that's right. Because when I gone to River Stanley and started meeting Protestants for the first time, I was going, this isn't what I was told.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I went, they're lovely.
Yeah.
These guys are great. And I was really embarrassed sometimes. This was the troubles. And then when you start getting friends with people, you want to take them to places and you want to come here. And they'd invite me to some places up Newton Ards Road. And I'm okay, I've never been here. But they look out for you.
Yeah.
They got your back.
Yeah.
I thought, I heard about it. There was something my mate was going to, and I think it was the Foresters Club, and I didn't know.
Right.
Foresters is probably quite a Republican club. And I didn't know. It was the back end of where Europa is, but it was a derelict area.
Uh-huh.
I tell you, to this day, it horrifies me when I think, I felt like I was setting them up for a hit.
Right.
I walked out going, I don't know where this place is. It's derelict, and I was told it's behind this old building, but even as I going, I started to feel like I'm setting them up for it. It just looked like some out of a movie.
I know.
And I could see their fear. And I was going, God, please. What I wanted to do was build warmth. And we got into the place and it was, it was tricolor. I go, oh my God, I didn't know it was like this. I would have bought them somewhere a bit more neutral, know.
But then you get that very close to work because sometimes you don't think, oh, well, nobody will pick up on anything, nobody will do anything. And sometimes you just can't take the risk. Because I remember something happening. We had whenever I was at college because I ended up doing like sort of physical fitness stuff and all that. My first job was I was a lifeguard in the Cycle Leisure Centre. So doing this. But whenever we went to the Avenue 1 for lunch one day together, and knowing obviously there was a connection in terms of that bar and a particular organisation and stuff.
Avenue 1 is
it would have been a bar just at the bottom of the Tamper Avenue. It's not there anymore. Like it's gone. It's right up. No, it's a bit of loyalist, so but it's right opposite where Freedom Corner is. It used to be there. It's not there anymore. But one of the girls in the group who was part of our thing, had her coat on, but when she first took her coat off, she had a St. Gaul's top on, and I looked at her, like going, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?"
She's no idea.
And I go on, we were like going, "You cover that up." I goes, "What?" I says, "That's not going to go down well in here." And she goes, "What?" I said, "Going, listen, seriously, cover it up. You're not going to us booted out of here, like." And then somebody did come over to her and sort of tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, Don, but I think you need to leave." And I said, "Can I go on?" "Told you." Like have a bit of...
And these stories are important because this is what we grew up in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is part of our culture, and it's complex and it's messy and you're trying to. But even you saying, "Hey, watch yourself." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's hurtful and it's sad and then there's elements that are just amazing too. So that's
the paradox. That's the paradox of the what we have in terms of legacy in regards to the conflict and what we're trying to establish in terms of.
What's that restorative stuff you mentioned?
Okay. So I've been working within the restorative kind of field for about the last 7-8 years now. So whenever I left Apple, I tried to go independent and do some stuff myself. Didn't really work out for me. And then I actually funnily went for a job as a youth worker with Main Cap, believe it or not. And in terms of working with young people with, you know, sort of educational needs, you know, sort of, and I didn't think I would get the post because I've been out of youth work for so long. You know, my practice had wanted the thing, but I did the interview, and then obviously it was one of those. I did 3 interviews, interview with the staff, interview with the project manager, but also interview with the young people.
You have a lot of experience this stage.
Well, the thing is this is it. But and then it was the young people sweated for me. The interview with the young people sweated and said, "Listen, you're the person that they think that they could really get on well with."
So those people sort of
the young people who were using the service did an interview.
So was this like Asperger's or what?
No, it's kind of, you know, like kids with like a sort of like would be maybe some like with Down syndrome or other kind of, you know, that type of stuff, you know, there. But they were doing they did the 3rd interview. So I ended up getting the job, and that was me back in terms of community work and whatever else, which was dead on. And but it was at I went to a wedding, and I was sitting beside a girl called Debbie Waters, and no one offered before New Alternatives as an organisation, because one of the guys that works in the Shankill, Billy Drummond, we went to the Orangefield together. Me and Billy used to break dance and all together, this type of stuff, right? And
I'm interjecting because I got funny. Breakdance. My mate walked into Smithfield in Belfast. He just stole. You were looking for your mats, the lino, so you could do your backspins and your turtles and stuff. My brother just walked in and just stole it. He's like, how can you not see a person walking out with a big
lino? Well, listen, these things happen. You know, we were used to turning a blind eye to some things, aren't we? Like, you know.
So anyway,
so basically, Debbie's sitting beside me and she goes, "Did I hear a wee rumour, Glenn, that you're back working in community work?" And I says, I'm up on main cap or whatever else. She says, "You're looking to move?" And I was like going, "Nah, not really. You know, I'm not really that long in the place, whatever else, you know." So just come down and see us, you know. Anyway, a lot has changed with the organisation. Why don't you come down, meet me, whatever else? I'll show you what we're up to and all that kind of stuff. I think, don't worry, dead on.
These are guys doing restorative stuff.
Debbie kind of had, you know, 25, 26 years ago, had started this alternatives thing with a guy called Tom Winston, ex-prisoner, trying to find a way of dealing with summary justice.
So this was trying to get a victim and in the same
well, we would use the idea, now we talk about, you know, victims very kind of, I think, loaded, but we talk harm party, responsible parties, affected parties in terms of that, you know, so...
Harm parties?
So harm party be like what you would call your class, the person who's been affected, in terms of a crime has taken place, they're the harm party, because in the justice system, in the dominant justice system, even then, they're still not a victim, they're a witness in the dominant justice system.
And the trick is, if rehabilitation is to happen in any shape or form, or people aren't even aware of the problem, I didn't know I hurt you.
Yeah.
You're trying to bring a conscience when maybe you're not self-aware.
Yeah, people don't necessarily understand the impact that their actions have had on other people and so on. So the idea behind the restorative thing is to try and bring, without wanting to sound too airy-fairy, to try and bring some level of peace and harmony to the situation without an over-reliance on punishment. And the idea that punishment doesn't always work, because if punishment did work, and likewise, when we come in, the idea of the summary justice, punishment beatings, punishment shootings, if these things are working, then crime would have been stopped in our areas. But yet it wasn't doing. It was making people more resilient towards that type of thing, and making them sort of aggravated and resisting. You know,
so I in my class and stuff, like certain lads, because I was put into remedial class, all the emotional behavioural issue people were in my class, and so the guys in my class would be stealing the teachers' cars, and then burning them that day, things, you know. And so a lot of fighters, a lot of, you know, that kind of stuff. A lot of anger going on there too. Amongst a bunch of them, and they weirdly enough, because I'm in the class, I'm friends with them. I wasn't really into all that, but when I got them by themselves individually, they were actually really good. But when you're in the crowd, a lot more hyper vigilant,
bravado,
a lot more, And I remember thinking, how do you take that negative energy out? And most of it's coming from some type of defensiveness or something.
Like that. So part of that was, you know, so she said, you know, come down and see me, and she said, and we were down. I met up with her, and she pitched the job at me, and I just went, nah, that's not for me. Whatsoever. And then she went, well, I do have another rule here. I was like, kind of going, right, okay. And she goes,
so they just knew you, and we want this guy.
And then goes, training rule. And I'm like, okay,
Talk to me.
talk to me. And she started saying, listen, this is what we're looking to do with training and stuff. And I was like, going, okay, that sounds really good. How long do I have to make a decision? She goes, 5, 4.
Very good.
So I was like, going, I said, you serious? And he goes, yeah, serious.
And training in what?
And to take on training for their restorative justice thing. So for me to come in and
train teams to
train people to do stuff, or at least initially look at the materials that they've had and have been using and kind of refine it. Because obviously my background in regards, I went from youth work, I went the youth thing in terms of training youth workers, and then I went to Apple where I was training was a key part of my role there, training people within that thing. But I also moved out, I did what was called guest training, so I would have went to other places to deliver training for retail teams, for management teams, opening up stores and stuff like that. So all these kind of things were all in my wheelhouse, and training was kind of the thing that I really was, so that became my bag. It took me a long time to realize that that was my thing.
And is it, I did the Enneagram and I'm a 2.
Right, okay.
Which is more service oriented. It's more, which is weird. I thought I put myself for the 4 creativity, but that was 2 was my.
It's weird how those kind of things pan out for you. What you think you are and what you really are is completely 2 different things. I don't like to pigeonhole myself in terms of stuff.
No, and between Myers-Briggs and all them self-development tools and personality types, I get what they're doing. They're trying to say, just help each other be a bit more stuff, or I operate like this.
I just kind of look, you know what? That just goes back to what I talked about learning stage. Going, do you know what? And this is this effective context theory for me. It's like kind of going, all this stuff's great, right? It'll help sell a couple of books, right, as well. I said, but see, when it really comes down to it, you will learn if you're interested. If the subject matter, or if it's something that you have an invested interest in, it doesn't matter how you get the information, you will take it. Because we do always say, oh, people won't read, right? I guarantee you, someone in your family gets diagnosed with a serious disease, you'll read to find out what that is. Because the motivation's there, because you need to understand what's going on, right? And that's where you'll sift through page after page after page of stuff to find the information out. You know what I mean?
I've done that. I've done that on illness issues. You know
what I mean? And again, it's like anything that you're remotely interested in. My job as an educator, as a trainer, is to get you interested, invested, and find a way for you to be invested in the subject matter. And that was what kind of changed my whole approach to how we did training at the organization. So I went from this idea of the chalk and talky type stuff into the more blended learning type of thing, but more now where there's the set of principles and the values that are associated with the idea of restorative justice practices, is they get lived out in the training that we do. It's not just learn about, it's you do it while we're there.
It's self-development for them.
Yeah, but it's done right there and then. So circles are really important. So the idea of being able to connect with people. So we've got this kind of a few things that will go build, maintain, repair. So you'll build your relationships, make sure you put effort into your relationships, do what you need to do to maintain those relationships, because we're not always great at maintaining things. Something starts, and we kind of think, oh yeah, dead on, don't need to do anything now. Let it drift, and you wonder why you need to repair something later on. So we talk about this idea, if we can build good connections, we can maintain the norms that we expect to have in our relationships with each other. So whenever stuff does hit the fan, we're in a better position to actually repair what's going on, because we've got good relationships. And Northern Ireland's a good microcosm of looking at that in the opposite sense, right? We've had terrible relationships, right? And our sense of community has been destroyed because of the things that we've done to us, which has meant when it's come to the idea of repair and harm, it's been difficult, really, really difficult. Where if you build it the other way around, with the idea of let's build on the quality of our relationships, because we can't get to this idea of repair unless we have a connection.
And that's what the trust building was about.
That's all this stuff is about, you know. Let's talk about this: build, maintain, repair.
I don't even trust this group. So you've got to win me here.
You've got to go and connect with people first. And how do we do that? And we start with low-level buy-in. Low-level buy-in before we can get to dealing with more deeper stuff. So that's how we do that with all our trainers. So they start off at this low level buy-in of sharing with each other, moving through the modules together, where there's this deeper level of sharing going on with each other, which means when stuff does go wrong, we circle up and we are able to talk it out.
And what's nice that there's actually like a safe framework there.
Well, completely.
That's when they go, okay, I see what you're trying to do here.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're being upfront, transparent.
Yeah.
About it.
So we're going to live this out together, you know, which...
This is the kind of model we're operating in.
Yeah.
And I remember when our university lecturer says, now, all, as you said, what you said there, all models are wrong, but some are helpful. You know, I might sell a book or two.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're saying the same thing in different words so they don't get done for plagiarism.
Exactly, yeah.
But the principles are the same, them values you're talking about. Once you've seen them, read enough and seen enough, they're all saying the same things.
Exactly.
It's just created a different.
Yeah. And then for me, it's like kind of going pigeonhole, and people going, oh, young people today can't learn this way and they can't do this. If it's longer than 30 seconds, they won't take it in. I'm going, you know, in some cases, maybe, but that's not always the case.
I've had this. People say, well, exactly that stuff. I says, well, like I had 18-year-olds, whatever it was, for an hour and a half listening to me on relationships. Why they wouldn't do that? You don't do that. Of course, well, if it's relevant.
Yeah.
If it's relevant, like, well, you're going to tell me how I'm going to make relationships work because my relationships don't work.
Exactly.
They are leaning forward.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But the other thing is that we're missing some of the stuff, and while there's that, you know, that TikTok-y element of things in terms of the wee reels and all that kind of stuff, but you also have part of the culture in terms of how you consume content is binging. Where you binge watch multiple stuff. People can sit for hours and binge watch stuff. Like, well, somebody can sit for hours and hours, binge watch 10 episodes of a thing, and then be able to relay to you exactly what happened in that program and get you interested so that you want to watch it. That tells me something about people's capacity to learn.
And comprehension.
Exactly. You know, for me, it's like kind of going, let's just not write people off because we have an idea of what we think culture actually is. All those things are right. They're just not all right at the same time. Do you know what I mean? So you will get times where you only want short bursts of information.
So when people are talking about, the term I've been heard is deep listening.
Yeah.
Are you hearing behind?
What's going on? Yeah. What do you not know
that
would help you understand this person or the situation better? That for me is the key thing, because a lot of times we work in on off our assumptions and react initially to situations where it's like going, the question should be, what's actually happened here? What's going on? What do I not know that would help me understand that? What's the impact of that been for everybody, not just for one or two people, but what has the impact been? And how do we work together collaboratively to try and make that right for each other? We all have a part
and the
to play.
stakes are high for people personally because they feel it so raw in them. But in church circles, you used to always say, keep short accounts of one another.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep up. Are you checking in with each other? Did I do that? Or actually annoyed maybe? What did I do that was wrong there? What was? How did you?
Yeah, and I suppose you've got that idea. You know, I said confess your sins to one another. But for me, the idea of confessing sins is like going. It's not as in this context for me is if you've done something, say you've done. Yeah. You know, just own up, take responsibility. And people don't like doing that. We don't like taking responsibility at times for stuff because we're unsure of what the consequence might be, whatever else. But that comes from ultimately the fact that the relationship in the first place is probably not as solid as it needs to be. Yeah. You know, so if you were looking at it from a biblical perspective in terms of the idea that perfect love casts out all fear, if you have now I'm not saying that there's perfect
if there's trust there, I can be vulnerable.
Yes.
But if I don't trust you, I'm not going to be vulnerable.
Then that's out the window. And then we're scared about that's where we get false kind of, I didn't do that, I didn't say this.
And then the bravado comes up and it's all a whole fake facade.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for me, there's that element of this idea of getting to some level of reconciliation, or conciliation, not reconciliation. Conciliation is based on the relationship that we have.
Distinction there,
for me, is that the reconciliation thing for me is this idea that you come back together and things are. I don't know. Is it? We've just got interrupted by a rogue phone.
It's my iPad on set. I just want to hang up.
The Zoom call coming in.
Jim Keenan from America.
Oh, there you go. All right, I should have brought him on. So this idea of conciliation, reconciliation, the idea of reconciliation is that the parties come back together and are still linked together. But for me, the idea of conciliation is we can sort our issues out. That doesn't have to be the case. There's no dependability on our relationship continuing on after this process has happened, but we can deal with the needs that are presented there and make things right and be able to kind of leave it at that, because I think sometimes reconciliation almost feels forced, or people feel that they need to be back in, and it causes some issues in regard, and it comes back into this idea of the trust aspect. While I've recognize this person's taking responsibility for the things that they've done, there's still a level of impact for me. Yes, I've seen it. They've done something to try and make things right. That doesn't mean that person needs to be in my life.
Yeah, and that's good boundaries.
Yes.
You're going, actually, listen, I can even if you decide I'm going to, on one level, you can use the term forgiveness, whether it be secular or faith-based forgiveness, it's kind of just, I'm going to let that go in some shape or form.
Or you're choosing to kind of let it go in some way, but it's never really let go of because...
Only because they've got propensity maybe to do that again.
Or the fact that you know that it'll come back in your thoughts. You know what I mean? And this is this idea. Okay. The idea of the forget thing, it doesn't work for me.
The feelings come up again.
Yeah, and that stuff good. Okay. You know, when you relay that, because, these things, we're talking about quite vague in terms of this, but if something happens in our life and a conflict or a crime happens to us or something along those lines, it's inevitable at some point that comes back into at some point in your thinking, something will trigger a thought or something will bring something back for you. And it's about how we're able to handle that, in terms of a trauma-informed approach to dealing with some of these things. And the restorative approach is, it's not how do we get things go back to the way they were, because that's impossible. Once something has happened, it's a bit like Back to the Future, the timeline's affected, right? And we can't go back to the way it was before, but we can get normality, what looked like normality for people who have been impacted by that to come back, because behaviors change, habits change as a result of these things. They put a skew in the timeline for us, and we start doing things differently than we did before. And the restorative process is about how do we get life back to as best and normal as possible, for you're doing the same things, you're going to the same places, you're acting something similar to what you did before this happened, without saying that this didn't happen, because the idea of forget is rub it out. It didn't happen, but that's not the case.
And the trauma-informed being this, and if it is such a deep psychological impact on them, that's really sensitive.
And you need to be mindful of that, but also recognizing that if someone takes responsibility for their actions, right? And the other thing is, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll get an apology or anything up, but someone just is hearing sometimes someone, you know what, I did this to you, is sometimes extremely powerful.
That's massive.
You know what I mean? But also, on the other hand, for the person who is responsible for hurting someone, to hear the other person say, let me tell you how this impacted me. That's a powerful kind of timeline to be in, or a powerful moment to be in, to hear those sides of the story. I did this. What I was thinking about at the time was this. I wasn't thinking about anything else other than this. And then, well, this is how this impacted me. This is what it's done for me. This has changed how I look at my life. It's changed. This is making me think about maybe leaving my area and going somewhere. I feel like my life's been uprooted, and this is what's going on.
They're not conscious of any of that.
They're not conscious of that. And it's about this, the needs it's this needs-driven approach. And how do
you build a conscience if you're not conscious?
Exactly.
And weird one, in my past, I used to live with an ecumenical brotherhood for a year, and they used to slag me. They would call me Brother Oblivious.
Right, okay.
Because I probably wasn't used to sitting around a table and eating and stuff like some families would have been. And so when they're all sitting around eating, they're like, could you pass the salt and stuff? I'm just like, I don't know, could you pass? I think Brother Oblivious is here again. So they used to joke about it, you know what I mean? But I wasn't conscious. This is my world, this is how I operate.
Yeah.
And my wife used to say to me, it's not like you're selfish, you're just self-absorbed. You're caught up so much
in the moment.
You can't see everybody else's needs. You know what I mean? You have to go, I didn't know you were feeling Yeah.
So that's part of our thing. So the idea of build, maintain, repair is important there in terms of good relationships. What are the norms that we expect to see, and what happens? How do we deal with that whenever stuff does go wrong? But we also then within that, we do the idea of engage, explain, and expect. So we engage with people to sort of go, this is how we would like to do. This is how we would like to see things go. We want to bring people together to try and work stuff out. We're aware of the difficulties. A lot of it's done separately before we even think about bringing people together.
Mediation thing.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, we call it a conference an idea, because mediation for me puts, especially in the idea of a crime, right? So there's an identified victim, to use old terminology. There's sometimes an identified offender. Someone who's caused the harm, someone who's been on the receiving end of the harm. In a mediation scenario, those people are on an even keel. But in a crime-based scenario, they're not. So for me, it's like kind of the needs of all parties are important, but we're trying to address the impact of a crime that has had on the victim of the crime, the person who's been harmed. And there's certain things that now, as a result of it getting involved in this process, the person who's caused the harm can get a lot of their needs met because issues that may be impacting behavior, issues that are making impact on
Because you can
decisions.
talk to them separate of this.
Yeah, yeah.
You can
And
say, this is what I did. This, I was feeling this.
What was motivating that? Well, and then how can we, is there things that we can do to help address those needs that will help you there, which will put you in a position to be able to do something for this person here? Because the onus is that they'll have what they would like to see happen, right? Along here, what you're looking is what they're prepared to do.
So there's a conciliation you're talking about.
Something that's it. What I'm prepared to do to try and meet some of those needs. And then it's getting to the point where they can agree on. Now, you may not get everything that you want, but it's about saying, are we happy enough in terms of, coming to some kind of consensus?
I think the politics of it happening.
Yeah.
To be great enough that we have some shared future.
Where it's done. But the other thing is that then the responsibility goes back onto this person to complete that plan. So they'll come together and agree what they think should be done in terms of trying to make things right. That then has a time period that it has to be done within. So we would say, listen, to show that you're serious, we would like it done within a particular time frame. Yeah. And then the other side of that is, well, what happens if that's not done? What happens if this person reneges on something that they do? What are the consequences for that? And I think that's the hardest part of this, because a lot of people look at the restorative approach and go, oh, it's an easy touch. I have never seen anything harder in my life for someone who has hurt someone to sit down in the same room with the person that they've hurt in some shape or form, talk these things through, come to a place where they're prepared to do something for this other person to show that they want to try and address the needs that are in their life as a result of that. That's hard stuff. It is. That's hard stuff. That's with the faith side of things, that's the Jesus telling the disciples to carry the Roman soldiers' gear, the extra mile. That's
turn the cheek a little.
That's that stuff there. That's not easy to do because it flies in the face of everything that you want to do. It flies in the face of the oppression at the moment. Maybe you find yourself in because you've committed a crime. There's an oppression that comes with that. There's the threat of legal action. There's ostracization in your community. There's the guilt and the shame factor that comes with that in terms of you yourself and how you battle that within your mind and so on. And then there's the person who is on the receiving end of that stuff and all of the impact that's come on from it. That is a strange flux of a place to be in and try and take what is chaos and messy and turn it into something that could actually bring some level of healing.
And creative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're looking for the win-win, aren't you?
Well, to a certain degree, you're looking for a win-win. Yeah. Ideally, if this person feels that what this person is prepared to do goes some way to meeting, that's them. But there's then also the responsibility on to try and put things right for themselves. What is it that's causing maybe decisions to be made that are not healthy or helpful for you in your life? What do we do about that? So we think about it as almost a wraparound service for everybody. So we do that for people that have been harmed, but we also have those services on board for people who have harmed others. So we've on-site counsellors and stuff. You know what it's like trying to get counselling appointments these days, whatever. So we've on-site counsellors and programs and all sorts of stuff that help, address the issues that come out of these incidents.
Yeah, because something come up and you said, listen, that's going to take a bit of deeper work.
Yeah. We're going to go and deal with that. Yeah.
And we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
And getting that, and they can help them, as you say, realize the resilience.
Yeah. It's not an easy process. It's not an easy way of doing things.
Especially if you've got years and years of certain habits and behaviours.
Exactly.
It takes years and years sometimes.
And trying to learn over that or trying to reprogram yourself in terms of doing those things. And that's the thing. And for me, it almost brings you into this idea of the circular or the cycle of life kind of thing, that everything kind of happens in cycles. We look at how things have been in terms of history, sometimes repeating itself, but there's cycles of things and things come around again. And that's the biblical perspective on that is the like children of Israel in the desert going around in circles for 40 years, trying to learn a lesson.
Or be transformed to the renewing of your mind.
Right, exactly. And then having to go back and do things again. So there's that element of, hey, but the idea that I like behind that is there's always another chance. And I think that's the aspect of maybe grace that some people find difficult to kind of process, is that there is always another chance. And And I think that that's where, in the restorative realm, when we look at the idea of the circular nature of how life may go for us, is that there will be another opportunity that this will come your way again.
That's so true. Because and the amount of vision in that is amazing. Because people need a purpose, they need a vision, they need something to aim for that's worth aiming for. Do you know what I mean? And so there's hope in that.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
And I know that all that language sometimes is pulled from church language, and you see it in music, you see it in all sorts of stuff.
Well, ultimately, I think, and I know I'm in terms of, we were talking off camera now about the idea of, faith journeys and stuff. I don't walk in faith in terms of anymore. I have the residue of faith that's left behind from a walk from many moons ago. But for me, the restorative approach that I work in terms of the field that I work in now, is I think is very closely related to the idea, the concept of what Christianity is supposed to be about. Because ultimately, at the heart of the Christian approach, is a relationship that's broken, a relationship between man and its creator that's been broken. And while there was certain things put in place to try and bridge that gap, ultimately so for me, the idea is God has taken his responsibility in terms of trying to mend that relationship, so build, maintain and repair the relationship with man. He has done his part. The responsibility for man or humans to kind of reconnect with their creator is part of that.
Because we used to
responsibility.
I'm not talking about all these models that we have.
Yeah.
And one of the ones was like we have the fallen culture, sin, all them kind of churchy words. But the idea was, and people used to talk about sin, I heard it talked about this way, which is sin is the thing sometimes we do to others that hurts them.
Yeah.
Or it's done to us, and that's the effect that culture has on us or whatever's going on there. That
all the stuff we do to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know?
And trying to find that redemption, that restorative justice, that something that absolutely takes you out of maybe some bad pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
And also can restore you back to people who
maybe it's trying to make, for instance, if you think about it, right? So the restoration in terms of our relationship with God, in terms of how the Bible plays that out, it's not Garden of Eden status. We don't have Garden of Eden status, right? Anymore, right? We still have this break that's happened, but however, the possibility of a reconnect with the person who made that is still there, right? So, because whenever you come back in, the God, I mean, we still have, because God, outside of that, before the decision to eat from the tree or whatever, there was a perfect kind of scenario there, right? No sickness, no whatever. It was all that kind of stuff there. That we can't live in that place now, right? However, I understand that there may be some interpretation of the Bible says that could be potentially open to you in terms of what you believe in regards to gifts and healing and all that kind of stuff, right? But for me, the ultimate, the thing that was broken was the relationship. There was the separation
and that's the C.S. Lewis model, the great divorce, as he calls it.
That's what's been healed, is that the idea of the relationships is that the important part of this is the relationship aspect, because you were built to be in relationship, not just with each other, but with, so...
What you say, because how much punishment, ostracization...
Yeah, completely.
And it can be a good check to put a boundary on you, if done right.
But it's not healthy.
Yeah, but if it's done just to brutalize you or to control you, you want your kid to love you because your kid loves you. I can use force, but I don't want to use force. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want you to know I've got your best interest.
But the idea is that the door is open.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The door is open there. It's not closed to you. And I always talk about the relationship that I have with my biological daughters in terms of the thing is that me and him don't like each other. Our relationship is terrible. And there is no relationship there.
With whom, sir?
As my biological father. So there is no relationship there. Right? And with the way that the two of us act towards each other, the door's not even open. You know what I mean? It's not open. The norm between us is enmity. It's like we don't like each other and we don't want to be around each other. So the idea of repairing that is really, really hard. And the idea of someone coming to me and saying, do you not think you would give your dad much? And that's maybe the hypocrisy of me saying that there's always another chance. And I've done this and got burned. Opened up, got burned.
And is that down in part to bad skill and pastoral skill or empathy? Or, because I'm just trying to think, some people are good counselors, some are
But the thing is that, the thing is that there's 4,000 miles worth of a distance between the two of us. You know, he's in Canada, I'm here.
Oh no, I didn't mean necessarily between you and your dad. I just meant as a general principle for people. That's why it doesn't work for some people.
Yeah, sometimes it does because in terms of, I'm not saying that it's impossible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the idea. If I was to soften my heart a bit there, the door opens. Yeah, the door opens.
Like a wee cog.
Yeah, it kind of opens up a wee bit to say there's a possibility of that, and you know,
providing there's good boundaries and it's safe.
Yeah,
and we're all
providing you know, and that's the last time that we made an attempt at this. You know, I was like kind of going. I was all like almost against my better judgment, and I went, all right, okay. Do you know what? It's my birthday. Let's have maybe have a think about it. It didn't take too long for it to revert back to, you know. No contact, no whatever. There's no follow up, whatever else, and just no concept of, you know, whatever. And I think, oh, there I go. I've done it again. I've flipping opened myself up to this here. I've done it again. But you know, and part of me kind of soothes myself a wee bit. But at least you opened.
And I like what you're saying there. And we do have them metaphors about hard hearts and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm being vulnerable. I'm trusting here.
But at the same time, once you can, and that's the difficulty, I think, is I think you can get to the point where you've been burned out many times. Sometimes you've got to, that's what I'm saying about the conciliation, the opportunity for reconciliation.
Might be a side of heaven, you know what I mean?
Well, it may not be a side of hell, you know what I mean? So,
exactly.
But you know what I mean? So that's where, you know, and that's the paradox that I kind of live in with this idea of the restorative approach and working that through.
How much do you want?
How much do you want it? How much do you really think? Is this really, these needs getting met, are they really important? But what are you prepared to do? And that's on both aspects. What are you prepared to do? What are you prepared to do in order to get this? Because it has to come that way.
I had a weird family experience one time. Sorry, with this a little bit. It was around my mum's passing, and my brothers were amazing. They really looked after them. They did the lion's share of the work. But we were kind of getting burnt out. We were all doing different nights. And after a couple of years of different ones doing it, we decided let's take a wee respite. And we didn't want to put my mum in the care home at all. So we just thought but everybody needs to they're doing too much of the lion's share. We're busy with young families and things, and it was just clashing, And I bless my older brother at the time was he was kind of angry. I don't know if he partly felt like he was failing my mum, and he wasn't. He was doing a great job with her. But then I sometimes wondered, did he think we thought he wasn't doing enough?
Yeah.
Doing a great job. But he was getting angry and antagonistic at us.
Yeah.
I remember when we were all in the room, and I said, before we say anything, I just thank you, John. You've done an incredible job. And I just want you to know, you've done more than most of us have done here. And Kieran, you've done an amazing job as well. All his defences went down. But, all right. I don't think he knew that we thought he was doing a good job. And so he got into a defensive posture, and it's going, oh, this is not good. And it just took out the animosity or the enmity.
Well, it's that there. And I think it's also about then how we speak to each other as well is really, like you're saying, how we speak to each other is really important, especially in times of conflict. Because when we're in times of conflict, we tend to spring from the emotive. You know, and sometimes the facts get lost in the emotions and how we speak to each other in the midst of a lot.
And that perception, because you can have two people grow up in the same family and their perception of that family, even though it's the same parents, can be totally different.
Completely. You know, so I think that's, you know, in terms of learning those kind of things. I mean, because there's stuff now that I've learned as a result of being involved in this restorative approach that I wish that I had in my locker.
Years ago.
Quite a few years ago, do you know what I mean? In terms of
like the pain you go through in life,
some of the stuff that you know that has been, you know, and that's the thing, you know, about this, you know, the light shining back on your own kind of life is like kind of going, but you can't live there in terms of what would have been great if I had known this. The fact of the matter is, you didn't. You know what I mean?
And you can only do what you know.
Exactly, and at the time, would I have done things differently? 100%. There's loads of choices that I have made. But again, it's that cycle kind of thing. There will always be another opportunity for you to try and do that slightly differently.
But you know, I've been using some of that religious language because God looks at the heart. He knows. And people say, if you're using it from a church perspective, when they go, people talk about who's getting to heaven, who's not, and they get very black and white about things. And you're going, well, you'd be judged by the light you know. If you didn't know it, How would you know?
Exactly. Yes. But that's that responsibility and accountability kind of thing, is there, and regardless of, because we can get caught up in dogmas and doctrine and things like that. There, I'm not saying that those things aren't important, because there's things that are there that need, you have to say there's some basis.
Yeah, there's wisdom in it.
Yes.
But wisdom of the ages. It took centuries to get some of the stuff, but it gets misused, misinterpreted, whatever.
Or twisted for a particular agenda or, narrative and stuff like that. And I get that, and I get it. And that sometimes puts people off certain things,
And it should.
And rightly so. Yeah, rightly so. Definitely. But, so for me, it's about, if I was to distill it down, in terms of, it's the idea of, it's relationships, first and foremost. That's the key element of life is relationships. What is the quality of our relationships like? But the onus is, we always expect the other person to do things to make the relationship better because we don't feel that we have to. I'm not in the wrong. But the responsibility is on both parties. We both have to make certain concessions towards what am I prepared to do to make this relationship better? Am I just prepared to sit here and gurn about how bad this relationship is? Or am I actually prepared to do something to make it better? Because if I can point out faults, I can point out what I need to do differently to try and address that. And maybe that's the question I need to ask. What can I do that would make this better? Well, is there something that I'm not doing that would help this be better for us? And I think coming from that perspective is the unarming of, well, you've been doing X, Y, and Z. And as a result of that, there's the barrier that goes up. But when you cross that barrier with, what could I do differently that would make this better for you?
And there's them, I don't remember you saying the old dialogue way for conflict. But you used to go, okay, you can't say you did this. You say, you've got to go, this is how
I feel. And
you had to do that. So you could take away the pointing finger so they can go, are you aware that this thing, I didn't even. And then sometimes people are like, I didn't even know that was happening. I was totally unaware that was going on for you.
It's funny, we do a thing where we call it effective language or restorative language, where it says you use I, not you. You address the behaviour, not the person. You state how it makes you feel, and you state what it is that you want to happen. Now, it only exists when there's conflict or there's hating things, because people get into this thing, what do you mean I've got to remove the word you from my language completely? Like, kind of going, no, just in this scenario.
Because you had that model, was it? Ideally, you have a straight talk with somebody and you clear the air, great. And if you can't do that, then you get a mediator or somebody that's going to say this. And what they're trying to say is this. Well, I thought they meant this. No, okay, great. And then they still can't agree, you end up with lawyers. And then you say, okay. And so you don't talk to the person. You're the furthest away from talking to them. You're at another level. And then the judge has to make a decision.
Somebody else comes in. So much. So many layers of coming in and another. And that's the kind of, and it's a strange way of talking. So it is, because whenever you think about the things that we're used to doing, like for instance, something that comes out of your mouth regularly is, so like whenever I was a kid growing up, I heard, shut you up. Right? Well, that's not really what they meant.
Go ahead.
Yeah. What they meant was, I'm really frustrated with the way things are going right now. It's really making me feel like I'm not being heard. I want this to stop. I'd like it to be, I want something different to happen. That's really what's being said, but we never say it. And whenever we change that to say what it is that we really mean, that's where the disarmament on the other side happens of that as well. Because I've used this with my daughter, because I used to have it, because sometimes you only, you know what you know, or you've been, in terms of bringing kids up, my only experience is what happened to me when I was a kid, like, you know what I mean? So I thought, so that's the way I was spoken to, and then that transferred into this. And then I had an experience where my daughter looked at me with absolute fear. Whenever I had spoken to her, like this kind of cowering kind of a way, as in like, I am scared of who you are right now. And that for me was a wake up for me in regards to going, you're talking about all this restorative stuff and you're talking to your daughter this way, right? And that's where the change started coming in terms of my own training and stuff as well, how we started doing this, like going, because if I can't do this, if this is something that I switch on for work, it's fake.
Yeah, it's not authentic.
You know what I mean? So I need to be able to do this myself. And it's about taking that risk to do that yourself. And it's like, I remember the first time that I tried this, I saying, I feel really frustrated when I'm spoken to that way. It makes me feel sad. It also makes me feel a bit angry. I'm worried about what I might say
And there's a conscious. I'm thinking in this situation you're talking about. Listen, things go out of hand when you have a couple of rules here that'll help us get a better bit of communication going on here.
Yeah.
But if them two parties can't
come in on that,
you can't even get to
that
stage.
point. Yeah. But I remember they did that, and she just looked at me and went, "Going, who are you?" You know, I was like, "Going, why are you speaking to me like that? Now you used to shout at me and stuff." I'm going, trying to change the way that we connect with each other because what has been happening just doesn't seem to work. We're just not building we're not dealing with issues effectively. So I'd like to change that. And you could see the cogwheels starting to happen because what they're saying, is he really serious? Or is this a trick in order for him to get what he wants from me? And when it becomes consistent, that's whenever the relationship with me and my daughter really changed. She realized I wasn't just putting this on. It was something I was doing. And when I messed up, I called myself out on it.
I'm hearing different languages in this stuff. Turn the hearts of the fathers back to their children, the children back to
them. That's the scriptural aspect of it, you know what I mean? But that's where, but it comes from how we speak. And if you think about that from a biblical perspective, God's voice and approach is technically always, from what we read in terms of the Bible, has always been this. But the tone changed from the Old Testament to the New.
And me and my brother always used to fight. Just we knew each other's trigger points. We just look at each other wrong.
You're away.
It just became a habitual pattern of relating. And I remember when I had to sort of change my own life at that stage. What if I just don't react?
Yeah.
And it messed them up.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with you? I normally do this, you do that.
There's
a way we behave.
Yeah.
I'm just tired of fighting here. I thought, well, maybe we've got a different way of doing this. And he went,
oh, okay.
We actually hadn't become really good mates after
Yeah.
that. But I just remember that something in this pattern is locked in. And it needs, because even when emotional literacy was the whole big buzzword, and the best, it's not emotional intelligence, but the best thing of emotional intelligence was emotional literacy. Everything else was just, you know, can you give me soul words? Can you give me a language to articulate, whether it be, I take the you out and I'm feeling, teach me words that I can do conflict resolution properly, because we're in conflict and we're not connecting. What is the kind of emotional language with that?
Yeah, but conflict is a skill, you know, but it's not something you're taught. Going back to school, it's not something you're taught. You're never taught how to deal with conflict. You know what I mean? No one sits down and goes, well, listen, you know, see when you're thinking about this here, this is what we're really thinking about. You're not,
normally it's this or just
silence and go run away from it, you know, and hope that, you know, you don't trip over all the stuff you've piled under the carpet. You know, so, but for me, that whole idea of but practicing it, you know, nothing becomes, you know, we talk about the idea of, you know, when people are experts in things, the amount of hours that they've had to put in to something becoming a habit and becoming a skill or whatever else, all that kind of stuff. It's the same with this, that if we don't practice this, if we don't practice how to put things right and try to, you know, recognize I have a responsibility and that's what I need to stand over, that if we don't practice it, then it never becomes part of your life anyway. And then you're just stuck in the cycle of this will happen again, the same thing will go over and it deepens the wound. It'll come round again, it'll deepen the wound, it comes round and it deepens the wound. And by the time you get to the point where it's like, and that's probably a good you know, synopsis of a relationship with me and my dad, is that the wound's that deep now where sewing that thing up is going to be extremely hard. But if we don't practice trying to put the stuff right, then we're just going to end up in this cycle of hurt. And that's, I know we talk about the trauma response now in terms of that, but for me, one of the things that was really interesting as I delved into that type of stuff is that how active our logical brain is at the different stages of incidents that happen to us. Whenever we're in a calm state, our ability to process stuff logically is extremely high. But when we're in a place of fear or terror, our logical brain shuts down to the point where it's you know, whether it's 1 or 2% of that is there, but there's different stages in between that. And if we can understand that, then we'll have some level of understanding as to the rationale behind some of the behavior we might be experiencing from other people towards us or whatever else. And you can step out of it a wee bit and recognize, hey, I don't like experiencing this. However, I'm recognizing the emotions and whatever else that may be attached to this here can maybe put a different slot. And some people look at that and go, I did all, mate. whatever. Everything's trauma.
Yeah.
And that's grand until you're sitting in the middle of a room with people who are trying to process stuff that's happened to them and can't get past it because the emotion and everything that's connected to this event has them locked in this place and they can't move forward.
Yeah. And if you're in psychotherapy, if you're doing MDR, whatever, it's that, because the emotional bit is hijacked, as you said, the rational part of it.
Yeah.
And so it's disconnected from reason.
Yeah.
And you're going, I have to actually join that up again.
It's the connecting the calm because the calm's where you can make the decisions.
And I suppose in church circles they used to call it inner healing.
Yeah.
They used to say, how do you calm that storm in your head, in your heart, so you can actually, am I part of the problem here too?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's also they used to talk about that idea of how do you get to the point where the still small voice rules. You know what I mean? So it's like kind of going.
It's not the wind. It's not that.
It's just the wee thing in the middle
have
of
a
it.
meal with me.
Yeah. Where is that? You know, and I think that, but we can only get to that place when the wind and everything else has calmed down a bit. You know what I mean? That's that for me personally. That's the.
No, I'm totally tracking me that. All I'm doing in my head is, but I'm conscious some people listening to this here are more church language and some aren't, and I'm trying to sort of say some of these models are the same thing. We're using a different lexicon, but maybe you know it this way. Because I think half of my frustration with learning stuff nowadays is I'm just learning French and German, but they're all saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going, so I have to learn your language first and go, oh, that's the same as this, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the same as this.
Yeah, no, it's one of those, definitely one of those things. And I think, when we look at where, what people are looking for in terms of how we want, it's for me, the development, the future of Northern Ireland and all that kind of stuff for me.
Let's go there. That was amazing stuff, by the way. I love it. I'm loving that. Thank you. I found it very helpful. And you're so articulate around it, Glenn. Really good how you broke it down. I'm loving. And so I'm legitimately asking me, what's your hope for the future? Because Northern Ireland, it's so, well, not just Northern Ireland, the world is at each other. Aren't they? Liberal, conservative, right, left, flags of every persuasion to, ideologies and social media, and just, it's like, you two's Europa, you're just getting hit with everything. Do you know?
Yeah.
And
I think for me, it definitely goes down to I'll reiterate the build, maintain, repair thing. I think, that unless there's good relationships, the idea of what should be normal in society for us, that comes into question.
So you change the community by changing individuals?
Yeah, basically,
It's got to go one by one.
And I think there's also this idea of being open to understanding rather than just gaining knowledge, because I think, you can look at the outside and think that you know how something, like for instance, we were talking about the inner workings of bonds. On the outside, no one sees that. They see their own sectarian bigots.
And part of my, I invited you because I'm sick of that us and them thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I went, and I know when I talk to people, there may be people listening to this, or my family and different things would be going, talking to guys who are in the bands. I'll tell you about the bands, and I'll get that, and I get where they're all coming from, but it doesn't mean I don't. But you're talking about connection. So
Yeah.
Do you know the person?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know their context? Do you know where they came from? Do you understand why they cherish that? Do you understand?
Well, likewise, can I hear the other side? Can I hear someone say, well, this is what I experienced as a result of that?
Yeah.
So that for me, this idea that understanding is deeper than knowledge. So
what wisdom, isn't it? How do you got all this stuff. What's the wisdom?
Yeah, where does that get? And for me, it starts with a conversation. It starts with trying to have some level of a connection, because someone to sit down and talk to me about some really deep level stuff with them, whenever they don't know me and I don't know them, that's difficult to have, because I'll give you.
Okay, yeah. I'm just thinking the model. Some of these models are just great for people who are listening. Right? I think, the tensions in wisdom.
Of a fair idea, yeah.
And it's basically what you're saying. Here's the tension. Here's the problem. Now, I'm not even going to look at what the wisdom is yet.
Yeah.
But there is wisdom, but right now we need to understand why the tension is.
Yeah.
As you're saying, let's connect with whatever the issue is. Well, we'll get the wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
But what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did a session on the Falls Road. I went down with band uniforms and all sorts of stuff with a group who were looking to, just
join the band.
Maybe join their own band. But we're looking at the whole, and we did a perceptions exercise. You know, a perceptions exercise. Yeah. But the last.
Oh yeah, word association.
Yeah. So we did that, but the last picture in the thing was a band. And I says, and what does that come up with your, what comes out your mind? So bigots, hatred, all the usual stuff. And he said, what do you think about people who are are in the band and started talking. It was all negative stuff, whatever else. So what I did was then I changed the photograph. It was the same photograph. But what I did was I put everything else black and white and left one person in colour. And the one person was me.
Oh, they didn't know.
And I was like, kind of going, I says, is that how you feel about me? And I go, why? I says, because that's me there. That's me as an 11-year-old kid walking as part of the band. I says, I don't feel any of those things. You know, and it was really, and it was like kind of going,
very good.
What do you really understand? Because then we had a conversation about, I said, I'm here, you ask me whatever you want. And I will do my best to give you an answer. I says, you may not like the answer that you get here. All right. And I says, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to tickle your ears. I'm not here to make you feel good about yourself. I says, I'm here to give you an honest response. Yeah.
You're saying, we can't move on until we understand until you understand me and I understand you. We're stuck.
Yeah.
I remember I took a Presbyterian guy down to a Catholic convent school in Limerick for me, and they worked out he was Protestant, and they were been lippy. Oh, use Protestants this, use Protestants don't believe in Mary. He's like, yes, we do believe in Mary.
Yeah.
Oh, do you?
Right.
You know, we just don't believe in the virgin birth, but you know,
we don't believe in the virgin birth, we don't believe in the
back in session. I said, oh, right. So but they had all this. What age were they? They were 15, knew nothing about Northern Ireland, and had all these perceptions of the people up here.
And I think that's so important, because we don't believe in this, don't believe in that kind of thing. And I go, well, do you actually believe in the Immaculate Conception in terms of Jesus? I just don't believe that Mary was immaculately conceived. Believe that Mary was a normal human being who God just happened to bless. So because without Mary, there is no Jesus. Sorry, but that's just if the Bible's true and she's mentioned here, then I can't write her out of the story. But I'm also conscious that where that comes from, and again, this is the idea of the conflict in terms of, especially that in the Reformation and stuff. You know, where certain belief systems, because this and this happens to us all. This is a microcosm of all of it. If we feel that something in our life is under attack, we have a tendency to sometimes overemphasize certain things in our lives. And they become dominant parts of our thinking, our theology.
You double up.
You double down on it, and sort of go, hey, no, you're not going to go
not only believe this, but I'm going
to really add more stuff onto this to kind of find
the antagonist.
And that becomes even more antagonistic in terms of that. So, but we do that throughout life. We double, we double down on stuff, and to the point where we're like, the stubbornness aspect of it is kind of, it's just like, there's no saying past it, But I think it's about having those conversations and recognizing that we're not all in the same place, but also about recognizing that just because you have a narrative on your own idea of what the future should look like, is that's the only way it can be done. And I think that for me is that's an interesting place for all of us to try and find ourselves in, because we're still very much this or this.
And we can romanticize this and this, as in, well, I think this is better for these reasons, and sometimes the reasons are really good ones, actually, well, be economic or whatever, but some are like culturally romantic, and
I think and that's the stuff that we don't know when we're living in with the idea of, do we really understand each other? And the reason why I mention it is because we talk about cross community work, and there's been a long history of cross community work, right? In terms of trying to bring people, we're no further on, to be honest. In my opinion, I don't think we're any.
No, here's right.
Really further on.
Somebody talked about the benign apartheid here.
Yeah.
He said we've removed the extreme violence from the streets, but the affection's not there. Yeah, well, it is between the individuals and certain people. There are people who are really
who have a connection.
Yeah, and they're making connections. I'm not listening to. I understand the voices and the culture, but I'm going to move beyond them voices. I'm going to try and make some connections, because I can't change that big thing. And as you said, work with individuals. And so we try to move outside of the noise to try and say, I'm sure they're not what you're saying.
Well, this is the thing, so for me, whenever I look at sort of even some of the evaluations and stuff that you hear around the cross-community work and stuff, for me, it seems that we've spent millions of pounds for people to just say at the end of it, I've just found out they're just the same as me.
Remember Sting's song? I loved at the time in the 80s when the troubles were happening. I hope the Russians love their children too. If they love their children, all they want is the best for their children. And that shared future is not just about them. It's about what we're leaving.
Yeah. But for me, it has to go beyond. It has to go beyond that in terms of, well, of course, if you look at, you just, at a glance, you can see, for most part, 5 fingers, 5 toes, 2 eyes, whatever else. You know what I mean? That the similarity is there in regards to that we're same that way. But the internal aspect and how we view and see the world is very, very different.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that's not visible. And that's the only thing. You can only get to that if you're in a relationship with somebody you're prepared to take a risk. And I think we're still stuck in that guarded place of we feel if you take the risk, how you get viewed by your own community, how you get viewed by another community in regards to that there. And I just don't know how close we are to making loads of progress in regards to really finding not the middle ground, but finding a way forward that actually works for us all, that doesn't have some level of triumphalism attached to it.
It's true. It's true. It's obviously, you know, I've got lots of examples where it's not working. You know what I mean? And you go,
but that's not to say that there's not places where there is stuff. There's good stuff happening. Do you know what I mean?
There is exceptions, and I'm looking.
Yeah, there is exceptions. There are exceptions.
Yeah, and
you know,
and I'm only saying that as a prelude to because I'm saying about a bit of cross community work. Church in Lurgan did. Some of lad shows up. I think it was a hammer. And there was a couple of wee Catholic guys from there, and so the youth workers seen it through their security camera.
Right, okay.
And so they kind of went out and he took the hammer into the. And over a time, they I think I've told this story once before on these podcasts, but they got to know the two lads, but and then listen, come on in, and he got to know the lads, and then the two of them personality-wise got on like a house on fire. And then one day, somebody for a laugh, but one came in with his Celtic top, one came in with his Rangers top, and someone took a picture. Thinking, great, no, you know, it's happened before. That happened, and then come up the marching season, somebody posted it online. And the two communities turned on both of the kids.
Right.
And then they couldn't come back to the club anymore, you know. And I suppose one of the things when we were doing youth and community work is the difference between doing individual work with people and then working with the community.
Yeah.
And it's harder because there's so many individuals. and you're going, oh, that was actually quite a decent bit of work there. But it got...
The voices of the community kind of drown out what's been done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because... I don't even know if they know... When does the community become a mob mentality? Do you know what I mean? Versus, are we looking at individuals' hearts? Do we understand that them kids became friends who could have been enemies? There was a moment there for us to protect.
Yeah.
For both of us to protect.
And I think it, you know, but I think each community is still adopting into their own, you know, kind of surroundings again, you know, because obviously for the last 30-something years in terms of the Good Friday Agreement, there's been a considerable amount of change that has taken place, and we're all kind of finding our way of what does that look like for us going forward in the future, the stuff that we don't want to change, the stuff that we do feel needs to change, because we're all in the same boat. There's stuff that we don't want to change, and there's stuff that we do want to change. Our issue is, on one side of it, is the stuff that we do want to change is the stuff that these guys don't want to change. You know, and I think that's where the scenario we have in regards to how even our politicians handle stuff reinforces that particular viewpoint and doesn't seem to provide some way of us, well, how do we work our way through this that doesn't feel like somebody's being steamrolled? You know, and that's a difficult. I wish I had answers to that stuff.
No, I know, and sometimes friendships have been reaching across. I think eventually things about us permeate people, and you know, what the ongoing effect of that ripple is. You never know.
But it's been taking the risk to share, and I think that's about where the platforms that you find, you know, places to share, and I think, you know, it's also about making sure that certain platforms at times are not alien to everybody as well. There needs to be places where, you know, a culture that's counter to your own can be expressed without you feeling that you're under attack.
Yeah. And you and I can talk. We've crossed over probably a lot.
Yeah.
And so we're a lot more comfortable even joking about things that people wouldn't joke about. Because there's affection there.
Yeah.
And
it's connection. The connection's there. No.
And it's not, you're not antagonizing, you're not wound up, not a joke with a jag. And if it comes across as that, we'll clear the air. You know, sorry, I didn't realize I was doing that even, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that's years, as you say, growing skills and listening and
practice and stuff.
Yeah.
Try to, you know, put yourself into taking what's going on around you and just kind of going, you know what? Initially, this doesn't maybe sit well with me. You know what I mean? However, the way this person acts towards me doesn't reinforce that.
Yeah.
And I think
that's the hope for the future you're talking about.
Yeah.
If people do practice that and become conscious and self-aware of the things in that conscious of.
Well, that's it. But I'm also conscious as well is that I'm in the same boat. There's certain things that I don't want to see changing. You know what I mean? I'm like kind of going, and I live in that paradox of there's things that I love about in terms of what Northern Ireland is and so on and so on. You know, and I can live with and going, you know, like for instance, I'd say that there's been the last 40 years, there's been an extreme amount of flourishing for Northern Ireland as a country in terms of its economics, in terms of its standard in the world, the types of businesses that are here, the industries that want to take root here, the type of stuff that's being developed ongoing. I mean, who'd have thought Northern Ireland would be a centre of cyber security in the world? Do you know what I mean? Given the fact that we were an issue of security for a long period of time, and yet loads of cyber security firms want to make sure they're settled here because of the nature of the workforce.
That's Paddy Cooper's talking about.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to go to England, it's full of terrorists.
So, but also in the likes of, you know, you've got the banking story, you've got the film industry that thinks that this place is amazing. And
the amount
of stuff that's come to Northern Ireland, you know. I know there was a recent comment someone made about Northern Ireland being a shithole and stuff like that there. Northern Ireland's far from it. Do you know what I mean? I think if you were to look at what we grew up in and what Northern Ireland is
that
today,
balance is gone. Do
you know what I mean? And I think that's, you know, it's shown us that, hey, yes, there's an undercurrent of stuff we still need to deal with. There's still legacy things that we need to deal with, but a lot of us have flourished. Now, for some, they'll say that the peace dividend hasn't hit them yet. But
I went to, I think it was Evangelical Alliance, for a round table thing about green and orange stuff. And I said, so because they said they feel like the conversation's not happening, and they went, I said, yeah, because the cost of living has become number one for everybody. The green and the orange is nearly secondary to that now, because I suppose the negative side of all that industry coming in is when they took off all the kind of economic boundaries. I think the working class have struggled the most with this, because there are certain people getting wealthier and certain people getting a lot, and then there's no hope and vision for their. I don't know who wrote the song. I don't know if it's Joseph Martin. Please, sir, when he's talking about the mining villages in Wales back in the day, please, sir, tell me when you try to shut these down, whatever, you have a vision for me. Are you just taking this away? You actually have a vision for us.
Yeah, what's coming on to us?
Yeah, and so going back to that vision of purpose and the meaning, you know, for years, Harding Wood with a big vision because it was industry and it was like the mills, and there was vision for how to be prosperity, you know?
Yeah, but and I think that goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, about a lot of the stuff that we used to rely on has disappeared.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the stuff that we would have had is gone. And it means, so you can't rely on the shipyard for anything. We can't rely on the classic things that the place was known for a long time. There needs to be new things that are there for as a result of that. But I also think that means, but the stuff that's been consistent in our communities, despite all of that builds the things that the type of qualities and skills that are desirable for anyone, regardless of your background. I think that we write that off on our apparel. We need to nurture and say that's extremely positive to have. You may not like the package it's coming in.
Good. I like that. Because I agree. Some people don't. You know what I mean? And I go, well, look behind the cover. Not a cover, guys. There's a lot in there. People just give youth workers a hard time. Back here sitting around playing pool. Some might be, but if you're a good youth worker, that conversation,
that pool conversation is ridiculous. You know what I mean? I always remember when I did one of my placements at university for when I was doing my youth work degree, and somebody said, "What did you do all week?" And I says, the place I was in was computer suite. It was all around us. And I says, "Well, what did you do?" And I says, "You know what? Actually, I played championship manager with 4 wee guys for about an hour and a half." You know, and I had such a laugh talking. He says, "But well, what did you get out of that?" Well, it says, "I got, you know, a wee bit of trust, but I got to work out how they think about certain things."
Because they just said
it. I says, I got the, you know, and I came to like things, well, because there's stuff to do with money in the game, I got an idea about how they think about cash. I got an idea about what they think about different nationalities because they were signing players and they wouldn't sign somebody from a particular country or whatever else. Do you know what I mean? So you get an idea of, I don't want them on my team or whatever else. I said, so the game becomes a microcosm of who the person is, because
and that's intentional.
Yeah. You know, you're doing that and kind of going, well, listen, okay, so remember we were doing this the other day and you talked about that. How do we take off? How does that pan out in day to day? You know, say for instance, you were to meet someone from that country here, you know, what way do you think you'd respond? Oh, it's different because that's a game. You know, and I'd say, well, what are you saying? So the difference is when it's a person standing in front of you, would change. Well, yeah. I go, well, what's the motivation for playing? He says, because I don't need to care about a person again because I can just switch it off.
Great. And I'm going to kind of bring this somewhat to a close here.
Yeah, no worries.
I just want to try and summarize it because there's a lot in there, isn't there? So we've come from different contexts. We see that we all have the same human needs, and it's all around relationships. And as I always say, Dean Sherman's quote out, the root problem in the world is a relationship.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's Catholic, Protestant, Christian, Muslim, poor, rich. He says, if you can't get your relationships right, everything's falls apart.
Yeah.
You know, addiction's a relationship issue. People can't function right, relationship issue. So I totally agree with that, the heart of that. And from a faith perspective, you're saying that's that break with God's relationship and our relationship. How do we see the rest of the world? Are they the enemy? Are they our friends? Or are they human? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sounding like a song from...
Wait a Michael Jackson turn up here and sing it Heal the World or something.
It does like you're slipping into that. Okay, so yeah, I think that there was some really good stuff on that, and maybe if people, I hope, please God, if they're listening to this in some ways, they'll go, there was so many nuggets in there. I hope they can take from that and go, haven't thought about that, and even we can make people look at each other who haven't looked at each other well, and maybe they could stop and pause.
I just think about you trying to add to this because this is kind of the Rogan territory here.
No, I do long form. I'm so into long form because all the many nuances are in there, you know, and people just go, that was a bit spoken, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I'll cut shorts later, but
yeah. Well, here's the reason. But listen, I really appreciate the conversation, Mark. You know, we've kind of delved into all sorts. I'm glad you whacked your notes away and just kind of went with it. You know what I mean? So
we're gonna pack this up and we'll take you for lunch if you want.
All right. Okay. Yeah. No worries.
And thanks.
Sweet, man. Brilliant. Good job.
Good laugh.